Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, When Shadows Fall. Derek Lawson had always prided himself on reading people. 20 years in private security consulting had taught him that threats often came wrapped in familiar faces. But as his 8-year-old son Tyler's trembling voice echoed through their suburban home, Derek realized he'd missed the most dangerous threat of all. "Daddy, lock the door. Right now." The urgency in Tyler's whisper sent ice through Derek's veins. His wife Chloe had left for her sister's house barely 15 minutes ago, claiming she needed to help with wedding preparations. The timing now felt surgical in its precision. "Why, buddy?" Derek asked, his training kicking in as he scanned the living room for potential weapons. Tyler pointed toward the backyard with a shaking finger. "Mommy's friend is here. He told me to stay in my room until his work with you is done." The words hit Derek like a sledgehammer. His son's innocent description painted a picture that made Derek's blood boil. Someone had not only violated his marriage, but had the audacity to threaten him through his child. Derek grabbed his phone to call the police, his finger hovering over the numbers. That's when he saw the shadow move past the kitchen window. A tall figure, moving with purpose toward the back door. Derek's military instincts, honed during his time in the Marines before his security career, sparked to life. "Tyler, go to your room and lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you." As his son disappeared upstairs, Derek positioned himself behind the kitchen island. The back door handle turned slowly. Derek had installed top-grade locks on every entrance. Whoever this was had a key. The door opened, and a man stepped inside. Tall, athletic build, wearing expensive clothes that screamed corporate success. Derek recognized the type. Smooth talkers who thought money and charm could buy them anything, including other men's wives. "Hello, Derek." The man's voice carried an arrogant confidence that made Derek's jaw clench. "I'm Blake Morrison. I think it's time we had a conversation." Derek remained silent, studying his uninvited guest. Blake moved through Derek's kitchen like he owned it, opening the refrigerator and pulling out a beer. The casual violation of Derek's home sent rage coursing through his system. "Nice place you've got here," Blake continued, popping open the beer. "Though I have to say, Chloe deserves better. Much better. Get out of my house." Blake chuckled, taking a long sip. "See, that's where you're wrong. This isn't really your house anymore, is it? Chloe's been telling me all about your little marriage problems. The fighting, the distance, how you're never here for her or Tyler." Derek's hands slowly clenched into fists. "You have 10 seconds to leave before I throw you out." "I don't think so." Blake's demeanor shifted, the false friendliness dropping away. "You see, Derek, I know all about you. Your little security company that's barely breaking even, your gambling debts from that Vegas trip last year, how Chloe's been covering for your financial mistakes. She showed me the bank statements." The mention of the Vegas incident, a foolish weekend that had cost Derek $15,000 in poker losses, confirmed that Chloe had been sharing intimate details of their marriage. But Blake's knowledge went deeper than pillow talk. This felt orchestrated. "Chloe and I have been together for 8 months, Blake continued. "She's been planning to leave you for weeks. The only question is how messy this gets. For Tyler's sake, I hope you'll be reasonable." Derek's tactical mind was already analyzing the situation. Blake wasn't just some random affair. He'd done homework. The timing of Chloe's departure, the knowledge of Derek's vulnerabilities, even the key to the house suggested planning. This was an ambush disguised as a conversation. "What do you want?" Blake smiled, sensing victory. "Simple. You're going to make this easy for everyone. Chloe files for divorce. You don't contest it, and we all move on with our lives. You get weekend visitation with Tyler, and Chloe gets to be happy for once. And if I refuse, well, that would be unfortunate." Blake pulled out his phone, showing Derek a series of photos. Derek's stomach dropped as he recognized images of himself from the Vegas trip. Photos that could be easily misinterpreted to suggest activities far worse than gambling. "Chloe took these from your phone. Amazing what people will believe when the right story gets out. Could hurt your security business, couldn't it? Hard to trust a man who can't even secure his own family." Derek realized he was looking at a setup that had been months in the making. Chloe hadn't just strayed, she'd been recruited. Blake wasn't just her lover. He was her partner in a calculated destruction of Derek's life. "I can see you're starting to understand," Blake said. "This isn't some sordid affair that got out of hand. This is business. Chloe wants out, and I'm helping her get what she deserves. Half of everything you own, plus alimony and child support. Consider it the price of your failures as a husband." Derek's mind raced through possibilities. Blake's confidence suggested he felt protected, but everyone had vulnerabilities. Derek's years in security had taught him that the most arrogant opponents made the biggest mistakes. "I need time to think about this." "Of course you do." Blake finished the beer and tossed the empty bottle in Derek's sink. "Take all the time you need. But understand, this train has already left the station. Chloe's attorney will be calling you Monday morning. Play along, and this stays civilized. Fight it, and things get messy for everyone." As Blake moved toward the door, he paused. "Oh, and Derek, Chloe wanted me to tell you that Tyler really likes me. Kids adapt so quickly to new father figures, don't they?" The threat was clear. Blake wasn't just taking Derek's wife. He was positioning himself to take Derek's son. After Blake left, Derek stood in his kitchen, processing what had just occurred. 20 years of marriage, 8 years of fatherhood, and 15 years of building his security business, all of it under attack by a man who'd walked into his house like he owned it. Derek pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. His first instinct was still to call the police, but Blake's words echoed in his mind. The photos, the financial information, the calculated nature of the attack. Blake and Chloe had prepared for legal warfare. But Derek hadn't survived 2 tours in Afghanistan and built a successful security company by playing defense. If Blake wanted war, Derek would give him war. But it would be fought on Derek's terms, using Derek's rules. As Tyler's footsteps creaked upstairs, Derek made a decision that would change all their lives. He wouldn't be calling the police. He wouldn't be hiring a divorce attorney. He would be doing what he'd always done when facing a superior enemy. He would be gathering intelligence, identifying weaknesses, and preparing to strike when his opponents least expected it. Blake Morrison had made one critical error. He'd underestimated Derek Lawson, and Derek never forgot, and he never forgave. Chapter 2: The Architecture of Betrayal. Derek spent the weekend in careful observation mode, watching Chloe return from her sister's house with the practiced eye of a surveillance expert. She moved through their home with subtle changes, checking her phone more frequently, arranging items differently, speaking to Tyler with a forced enthusiasm that felt like rehearsal. Sunday evening, as Tyler watched cartoons, Derek found Chloe in their bedroom, packing a small bag. "Going somewhere?" he asked casually. "Just an overnight with Lisa. She's having some issues with the wedding planning." Chloe's lie came smooth and natural, confirming she'd had plenty of practice. Derek nodded, filing away the information. Lisa, Chloe's sister, lived 3 hours away. If Chloe was lying about going there, she was likely staying local with Blake. Another piece of intelligence. "How long has this been going on?" Chloe's hands froze on her suitcase. "What are you talking about?" "The lying. The planning. How long have you been working with Blake Morrison to destroy our marriage?" The blood drained from Chloe's face. She turned slowly, and Derek saw something he'd never seen before. Cold calculation replacing the warm familiarity he'd known for 20 years. "Blake told me you two had talked." "Talk?" Derek let the word hang between them. "Is that what we're calling home invasion now?" Chloe straightened, her defensive posture shifting to something more aggressive. "Don't be dramatic, Derek. You knew this marriage was over. You've known it for years. What I knew was that my wife was distant. What I didn't know was that she was conducting psychological warfare against her own family." "Psychological warfare?" Chloe laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're the one who checked out of this marriage. You're the one who started gambling again. You're the one who chose your business over your family." Derek studied his wife's face, recognizing the careful construction of her arguments. These weren't spontaneous accusations. They were prepared talking points designed to justify what she'd already done. "Tell me about Blake." Chloe's chin lifted defiantly. "Blake is everything you're not. He's successful, he's present, and he doesn't treat me like an obligation." How did you meet him? Does it matter? Humor me. Chloe hesitated, and Derek caught the micro-expression that revealed she was calculating her answer. At the gym, we started talking, and things developed naturally. Another lie. Derek's security company had clients in the fitness industry, and he knew the dynamics of gym relationships. Blake's calculated approach to their affair suggested a more deliberate meeting. Which gym? Why are you interrogating me? Because my wife has been planning to destroy my life for 8 months, and I'm curious about the timeline. Chloe's face hardened. This isn't about destroying anything. This is about finally being honest about what our marriage became. And what did it become? A mistake I stayed in too long for Tyler's sake. The words hit Derek like a physical blow, not because they hurt, but because they revealed the depths of Chloe's deception. She was rewriting 20 years of history to justify 8 months of betrayal. Tyler knows, doesn't he? About Blake? Chloe's defensive mask slipped for just a moment. Tyler likes Blake. He's good with kids. Tyler was terrified yesterday. He thought Blake was here to hurt me. Blake would never hurt anyone. Tyler just misunderstood the situation. Derek realized Chloe was either lying to him or lying to herself. Blake's behavior the previous day had been deliberately intimidating, designed to establish dominance. But Chloe was choosing to see what she wanted to see. What does Blake do for work? He's in corporate consulting. He helps companies streamline their operations. The vague description raised red flags. In Derek's experience, people were either proud of their work or embarrassed by it. Blake's job description sounded like something designed to avoid scrutiny. Where did he go to school? Derek, stop. I'm just trying to understand the man who's going to be around my son. Blake went to Northwestern. He has an MBA from Kellogg. He's probably more educated than both of us combined. The defensive pride in Chloe's voice told Derek she was repeating information Blake had given her, likely without verification. Derek made a mental note to investigate Blake's credentials. How much does he make? More than enough to take care of us. Us. Chloe's face flushed. Tyler and me. When we're together. So you're planning to take Tyler away from me. I'm planning to give Tyler a stable home with a man who actually wants to be a father. The accusation stung because it contained enough truth to be effective. Derek had missed school events for work, had been distracted during family time, had prioritized building his business over being present. But Blake and Chloe were weaponizing normal marriage struggles to justify something far worse. And my business? What about it? Blake seems to know a lot about my finances. Information he could only have gotten from you. Chloe's silence confirmed Derek's suspicions. You gave him access to our bank accounts, didn't you? I showed him some statements. He was helping me understand our financial situation for the divorce. For 8 months, you've been sharing confidential information about my business with a stranger. Blake isn't a stranger, and your business affects my future too. Derek realized the scope of Chloe's betrayal extended far beyond adultery. She'd been conducting corporate espionage against her own husband, sharing client information and financial data with someone whose motives were entirely unclear. Who else knows about Blake? What do you mean? Your friends, your family, Tyler's teachers. Who else have you told about your boyfriend? Chloe's hesitation revealed she'd been more discreet than Derek expected. Lisa knows. A few close friends. But not your parents. My parents wouldn't understand. Translation. Chloe knew her parents would see through Blake's act. Derek filed that information away as well. What happens now? Blake's attorney will contact you Monday. We're hoping this can be settled quickly and quietly. Blake's attorney? He's handling the legal aspects for me. Derek felt another piece of the puzzle click into place. Blake wasn't just Chloe's lover. He was controlling the legal strategy. Most affairs were emotional. This one was transactional. Chloe, I need you to understand something. If you proceed with this, there's no going back. Ever. I don't want to go back, Derek. I want to go forward. Even if it means destroying Tyler's relationship with his father. Tyler will have a better father figure with Blake. The casual dismissal of Derek's paternal bond with his son crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Derek realized Chloe wasn't just choosing Blake over him. She was choosing a complete erasure of their family's history. After Chloe left for her overnight with Lisa, Derek sat in his study, surrounded by files from his security business. His company specialized in corporate threat assessment, but the skills were transferable. Blake Morrison had declared war on Derek's family, and Derek was going to treat it like any other security threat. He opened his laptop and began researching. Blake Morrison, corporate consultant, Northwestern graduate, Kellogg MBA. Derek's preliminary searches turned up surprisingly little online presence for someone in consulting. No LinkedIn profile, no company website, no business registrations in the state database. Derek's suspicions deepened. In his experience, people who claimed impressive credentials usually left digital footprints. Blake's absence from normal professional networks suggested either he was using a false identity or operating in markets that didn't advertise openly. Derek picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. Rodriguez Investigations. Carlos, it's Derek Lawson. Derek, man, it's been forever. What can I do for you? Carlos Rodriguez had been Derek's partner during his early days in security. Now, he ran a private investigation firm specializing in background checks and corporate intelligence. I need a deep dive on someone. Personal favor. Name it. Blake Morrison. Supposedly a corporate consultant with an MBA from Kellogg. I'll send you what little I have. Sounds routine. What's the timeline? Yesterday. Carlos chuckled. That urgent, huh? This business or personal? Personal. Very personal. I'll have something for you by Tuesday morning. Derek hung up and stared at his computer screen. Blake Morrison thought he was playing chess with an amateur. But Derek had spent years analyzing threats, identifying vulnerabilities, and neutralizing enemies. Blake was about to discover that Derek Lawson wasn't just Tyler's father or Chloe's husband. Derek Lawson was a predator, and Blake had just made himself prey. Chapter 3. The Gathering Storm. Tuesday morning brought two pieces of intelligence that changed everything. The first was a phone call from Blake's supposed attorney, a generic voicemail from a law office Derek had never heard of, requesting a meeting to discuss amicable resolution of marital issues. The second was Carlos Rodriguez's background report on Blake Morrison. Derek read the report twice, his jaw tightening with each revelation. Blake Morrison existed, but barely. His Northwestern education was real, but his Kellogg MBA was a fabrication. His corporate consulting business had no registered address, no tax filings, and no legitimate clients. What Blake did have was a pattern of targeting vulnerable marriages in affluent suburbs, a string of aliases, and a criminal record that had been carefully sealed. Most importantly, Blake Morrison wasn't his real name. Derek called Carlos back immediately. Tell me about the sealed records. Took some digging, but I found traces. Your boy Blake used to be Brad Michaels. Got arrested for fraud and extortion in Oregon about 5 years ago. Case was dismissed on a technicality, but the pattern was clear. He was running romance scams on married women, getting them to leave their husbands and liquidate assets. How many times? At least 3 that I could find. Maybe more. Guy's a professional homewrecker, Derek. This isn't passion, it's business. Derek felt a cold satisfaction settle over him. Chloe thought she'd found love. Instead, she'd found a predator who specialized in destroying families for profit. There's more, Carlos continued. I found traces of 2 other women who got involved with him after their divorces were finalized. Both ended up financially ruined and emotionally devastated. Blake takes everything and disappears. Current address? High-end apartment complex downtown. Lease is short-term, paid 6 months in advance. Guy travels light and leaves quick when things get complicated. Derek absorbed the information methodically. Blake wasn't just threatening Derek's marriage. He was executing a practiced formula for financial and emotional destruction. Chloe was a mark, not a lover. Carlos, I need everything you can find on his current operation. Bank accounts, credit reports, travel patterns, communication records. Everything. Derek, what are you planning? Justice. Be careful, man. Whatever this guy did to you, don't let it destroy your life too. Derek hung up and immediately called his attorney, Gregory Palmer. Greg had handled Derek's business contracts for years and was one of the few lawyers Derek trusted completely. Greg, I need an emergency consultation. What's the situation? My wife is having an affair with a professional con artist who's planning to take her for everything she's worth. I need to know my options for protecting my son and my assets. Come in this afternoon. And Derek? Don't do anything stupid before we talk. Derek's next call was to his business partner, Lieutenant Colonel James Mitchell, retired. Mitch had served with Derek in Afghanistan and now co-owned their security consulting firm. More importantly, Mitch had connections throughout law enforcement and military intelligence. Mitch, I need a favor. Personal, not business. Name it. Derek explained the situation in military terms. Enemy infiltration, compromised assets, imminent threat to operational security. Mitch listened without interruption. So you're dealing with a professional operator who's been surveilling your family for months, has compromised your spouse, and is now threatening your child's welfare. That's the tactical summary. What's your mission objective? Complete neutralization of the threat. Derek, be very careful how you define neutralization. This isn't Afghanistan. I know exactly where I am, Mitch. But Blake Morrison made a mistake. He threatened my son. That afternoon, Derek met with Greg Palmer in his law office. Greg reviewed Carlos's report with the clinical precision of a prosecutor examining evidence. Derek, this changes everything. If we can prove your wife was targeted by a professional con artist, we can potentially void any agreements she's made under duress or fraud. What about Tyler? Blake's criminal background would make him unsuitable for any custodial role. Even if Chloe proceeds with divorce, her association with Blake would work against her in custody proceedings. And my business assets? If we can demonstrate that Blake gained access to confidential business information through fraud, we can protect your company from any claims in the divorce. Derek felt the first stirrings of a plan forming. Blake had built his strategy on deception and manipulation. Derek would use Blake's own tactics against him. Greg, I need you to prepare for a war. Blake Morrison thinks he's playing against an amateur. He's about to learn otherwise. That evening, Derek was in his study when Tyler knocked on the door. Daddy, can I ask you something? Of course, buddy. Come in. Tyler climbed onto Derek's lap, something he hadn't done in months. Is Mommy's friend going to live with us? Derek felt his heart break a little. Tyler was 8 years old and trying to process his world falling apart. What do you think about Mommy's friend? He's scary. He talks to me like I'm stupid, and he makes Mommy act different. Different how? Like she's pretending to be someone else. And she gets mad when I talk about you. Derek realized Tyler was seeing through Blake's manipulation in ways Chloe couldn't. Children often had clearer instincts about predators than adults. Tyler, I need you to know something very important. No matter what happens with Mommy, you will always be my son. I will always protect you, and I will always love you. Are you and Mommy getting divorced? Derek chose his words carefully. Mommy has made some choices that hurt our family. But whatever happens between Mommy and me, nothing changes between you and me. Well, I have to live with Blake. Not if I can help it. Tyler hugged Derek tighter. Good. I don't like him. After Tyler went to bed, Derek sat in his study, staring at Carlos's report. Blake Morrison, or Brad Michaels, had built a career on exploiting the vulnerabilities of broken marriages. He identified targets, gained their trust, isolated them from their support systems, and then systematically stripped them of their assets and dignity. But Blake had made a critical error in targeting Derek's family. Derek wasn't a suburban husband who would roll over and accept destruction. Derek was a former Marine, a security expert, and a man who'd spent his career identifying and neutralizing threats. Blake wanted to play games? Derek would show him what real warfare looked like. Derek opened his laptop and began typing. It was time to introduce Blake Morrison to consequences he'd never imagined. Chapter 4. Setting the Board. Derek's first move was patience. While Blake expected immediate panic and desperate attempts at reconciliation, Derek spent the week conducting surveillance and gathering intelligence. He watched Blake's routines, documented his patterns, and began building a comprehensive profile of his target. Blake lived in the Meridian Towers, a luxury apartment complex that catered to short-term corporate residents. Derek observed him leaving each morning at 8:30, returning around 6 p.m., with regular visits to upscale restaurants, expensive gyms, and shopping centers where he clearly wasn't shopping. On Thursday evening, Derek followed Blake to a coffee shop where he met with a blonde woman in her early 40s. Derek recognized the signs immediately: anxious body language, frequent touching of her wedding ring, the desperate hope of someone believing she'd found salvation in a dangerous stranger. Blake was working another mark. Derek took photos from across the street, documenting Blake's meeting with what was clearly another married woman. Carlos had been right. Blake ran multiple operations simultaneously, maintaining a pipeline of vulnerable targets. Friday morning brought the breakthrough Derek had been waiting for. Carlos called with additional intelligence that made Derek smile for the first time in a week. Found something interesting about your boy Blake. He's got a partner. What kind of partner? Female, early 30s, goes by Amanda Price. She's the one who handles the initial approach and emotional manipulation. Blake comes in later as the knight in shining armor to rescue them from their terrible marriages. Current location? She's been staying at the Riverside Hotel downtown. Registered as a corporate consultant, same cover story Blake uses. Derek felt the pieces clicking together. Blake and Amanda were running a two-person operation, with Amanda handling reconnaissance and initial seduction while Blake closed the deals. Chloe hadn't stumbled into an affair. She'd been hunted. Carlos, I need everything you can find on Amanda Price. And I need it today. Already on it. I'll have a full workup by this afternoon. Derek's next call was to Mitch. I need you to run a security assessment on someone. Business or personal? Personal, but use business protocols. Full surveillance, communication intercepts, pattern analysis. Derek, you're walking into dangerous territory. Blake Morrison declared war on my family. I'm just returning the favor. What do you need from me? Technical support. Blake's been monitoring my communications and financial records through Chloe. I need to know everything he knows, and I need to control what he learns going forward. I can have a full electronic countermeasures sweep of your house and office done by tonight. We'll find every device, every vulnerability, every way they've been gathering intelligence. That afternoon, Carlos delivered Amanda Price's background report, and Derek understood the full scope of what his family was facing. Amanda Price was a professional manipulator with a psychology degree from a legitimate university and a criminal record that included fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy charges. She specialized in befriending lonely wives, building emotional connections, and then introducing them to Blake as the solution to their marital problems. Derek studied Amanda's photograph, attractive in a calculated way, with the kind of approachable prettiness that made people trust her immediately. He bet everything he owned that Amanda had been the one to first approach Chloe, probably at the gym or grocery store, striking up casual conversations that slowly built into friendship and then confidential confessions. That evening, Mitch's team swept Derek's house and office with military-grade detection equipment. They found 3 listening devices, one in Derek's home office, one in the master bedroom, and one in his car. They also discovered that Blake had gained access to Derek's email accounts through Chloe's computer. This is a sophisticated operation, Mitch reported. Whoever placed these devices knew what they were doing. This isn't amateur hour. Derek examined the listening devices with professional appreciation. Blake and Amanda weren't just romance scammers. They were running intelligence operations with the precision of corporate espionage. How long do you think they've been listening? Based on the battery levels and installation methods, I'd say at least 4 months, maybe longer. Derek realized Blake and Amanda had been recording his private conversations, monitoring his business activities, and tracking his personal habits for months before Blake ever confronted him. They'd built a complete intelligence file on Derek's vulnerabilities, routines, and potential responses. But now Derek knew they were listening, which meant he could control what they heard. Mitch, leave the devices in place. But I want you to install counter-surveillance equipment that lets us monitor what they're monitoring. You want to feed them disinformation? I want to control the battlefield. Saturday evening, Derek was ready to begin his counteroffensive. He called Greg Palmer from a secure phone. Greg, I need you to start making inquiries about Blake Morrison with the State Bar Association. Very quiet inquiries about whether the law firm representing him is legitimate. What am I looking for? I suspect Blake's attorney is either Amanda Price or Blake himself operating under another false identity. If we can prove legal fraud, we can have any documents they've prepared declared invalid. That would be a federal crime. Yes, it would. Derek's next call was to Carlos. I need you to start monitoring Blake's communications. Phone records, internet activity, financial transactions. Everything. Derek, that's getting into surveillance territory that could cause us both legal problems. Carlos, Blake Morrison has been conducting illegal surveillance on my family for months. He's threatened my child, stolen my business information, and is planning to destroy my life for profit. I'm not interested in playing by rules he ignores. All right, but this stays between us. And if things go sideways, you never heard this from me. Sunday morning, Derek implemented his first tactical deception. He sat in his home office, knowing Blake was listening, and made a phone call to a fictional attorney. Yes, I understand. So you're saying if I agree to an uncontested divorce and don't fight the asset division, we can have this settled within 30 days? And you think that's my best option given the evidence they claim to have? All right, I'll consider it. But I want to meet with Blake Morrison directly before I make any final decisions. Derek hung up, confident that Blake was hearing exactly what Derek wanted him to hear, that Derek was broken, defeated, and ready to surrender. Blake's arrogance would make him believe his intimidation tactics had worked. In reality, Derek was preparing for the most important battle of his life. Blake Morrison thought he was hunting a suburban husband. Instead, he'd stumbled into the crosshairs of a former Marine who specialized in neutralizing threats to his family. Blake had made two critical errors. First, he'd underestimated Derek's capabilities. Second, he'd threatened Tyler. Derek never forgave threats to his son, and Derek never fought fair when his family was at stake. Chapter 5. The Trap Springs. Monday morning, Derek received the call he'd been expecting. Blake's supposed attorney, Dr. Patricia Williams, requested a meeting to discuss amicable resolution terms. Derek agreed to meet Wednesday afternoon, giving himself time to prepare the trap he'd been designing. Carlos called Tuesday with explosive intelligence. Derek, you're not going to believe this. Blake Morrison and Amanda Price have been running this scam for 3 years, but they're not the top of the food chain. What do you mean? There's a third partner, guy named Vincent Cross. He's the one who identifies targets and provides the operational funding. Blake and Amanda are field operatives. Derek felt his blood chill. How many families have they destroyed? At least 12 that I can't confirm. Maybe more. Vincent Cross specializes in targeting middle-class families with substantial assets and vulnerable marriages. He provides Blake and Amanda with psychological profiles, financial analysis, and operational support. Where is Cross? That's the interesting part. He operates out of a corporate office downtown, registered as a family counseling and mediation service. Completely legitimate on the surface, but I think it's a front for targeting potential marks. Derek realized his family hadn't just stumbled into an affair. They'd been selected by a criminal organization that specialized in destroying marriages for profit. Chloe wasn't Blake's lover. She was their victim. But her betrayal of Derek and Tyler meant she'd become their accomplice. Carlos, I need current surveillance on all three of them. Locations, communications, meeting schedules. Everything. Derek, what are you planning? I'm planning to end their business permanently. Wednesday afternoon, Derek arrived at the law offices of Williams & Associates for his meeting with Blake's attorney. The building was legitimate, but Derek's research had revealed that Dr. Patricia Williams was actually Amanda Price using another identity. Derek walked into the meeting knowing he was facing one of Blake's criminal partners. Mr. Lawson, thank you for coming. Amanda, posing as Patricia Williams, wore an expensive suit and projected the confidence of someone accustomed to intimidating suburban husbands. I hope we can resolve this situation amicably. Derek sat across from her, studying her face. She was younger than her photo suggested, with sharp intelligence behind her professional facade. This was the woman who'd befriended his wife, gained her trust, and then manipulated her into betraying her family. What exactly are you proposing? Your wife has made it clear that the marriage is irretrievably broken. Mr. Morrison has graciously offered to help facilitate a clean separation that protects everyone's interests, especially Tyler's. Derek almost smiled. Amanda was delivering lines she'd clearly practiced on other husbands. But Derek wasn't other husbands. And Mr. Morrison's interest in facilitating my divorce would be what? Exactly. Amanda's confident demeanor flickered slightly. Mr. Morrison cares about your wife's happiness. For 8 months, according to Chloe. Love doesn't follow convenient timelines, Mr. Lawson. No, but fraud investigations do. Amanda's face went carefully blank. I'm not sure what you mean. Derek pulled out a folder and placed it on the table between them. Amanda Price, also known as Patricia Williams, also known as Dr. Sarah Chun. Psychology degree from Ohio State. Criminal record in 3 states. Currently operating an illegal romance scam with Blake Morrison, a.k.a. Brad Michaels, under the operational control of Vincent Cross. Amanda's professional mask completely dissolved. Derek saw fear, calculation, and something that looked like respect flash across her features. You've been busy. I'm a security consultant, Amanda. This is what I do for a living. What do you want? I want you and Blake to disappear. Tonight, I want you to leave Chloe alone, leave Tyler alone, and find another city to operate in. Amanda leaned back in her chair, studying Derek with new appreciation. And if we refuse? Derek opened the folder and showed her photographs of Blake meeting with other married women, financial records documenting the scam operation, and communication intercepts proving conspiracy to commit fraud. Then I call the FBI. Romance scams that cross state lines are federal crimes. Wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit fraud. You're looking at 20 years minimum. Each. You don't have enough evidence for a conviction. I don't need a conviction. I just need enough evidence to destroy your operation and make you too expensive to protect. Vincent Cross didn't build his business to support partners who become federal targets. Amanda was quiet for a long moment, clearly calculating her options. Blake won't walk away. He's invested too much in this operation. Blake doesn't get a choice. Neither do you. And Chloe. Derek's expression hardened. Chloe made her choice when she decided to betray her family. She'll live with the consequences. She really loves him, you know. This wasn't just manipulation. Amanda, you're a professional liar. You wouldn't recognize love if it came with documentation. Amanda smiled despite herself. You're not what we expected. No, I'm not. I'm what Blake gets for targeting the wrong family. Derek stood to leave, then turned back. Amanda, give Blake a message for me. Tell him that if he ever comes near my son again, the FBI will be the least of his problems. After Derek left, Amanda sat alone in the conference room, processing what had just occurred. In 3 years of operations, no mark had ever turned the tables on them. Blake's confidence that Derek was a broken suburban husband had blinded them to the reality that Derek Lawson was a professional threat assessment expert who just turned their own tactics against them. Amanda pulled out her phone and called Blake. We have a problem. What kind of problem? The kind that ends with federal prison if we don't disappear tonight. Amanda, what the hell are you talking about? Derek Lawson just handed me a file that documents our entire operation. Names, addresses, financial records, communication intercepts. Everything. Blake was quiet for a moment. That's impossible. Blake, he knows about Vincent. He knows about our other targets. He knows everything. Then we accelerate the timeline. Chloe files for divorce tomorrow, and we liquidate the assets before Derek can freeze them. Blake, you're not listening. Derek Lawson isn't some suburban husband we can intimidate. He's a former Marine who runs a security company. We're not hunting him. He's hunting us. No one threatens my operations. Blake, this isn't about your ego. This is about survival. Derek Lawson just declared war on us, and we don't have the resources to fight someone who knows how to fight back. But Blake had already hung up. Amanda stared at her phone, realizing that Blake's arrogance was about to destroy everything they built. And Derek Lawson was just getting started. Chapter 6. Escalation. Blake's response to Derek's ultimatum came Thursday morning in the form of a text message to Chloe. Emergency. Need to see you immediately. Don't tell Derek. Derek, monitoring all communications through the surveillance equipment Mitch had installed, smiled grimly. Blake was reacting emotionally instead of tactically. Exactly what Derek had hoped for. Derek called Carlos. Blake's about to make a mistake. I need real-time surveillance on Chloe's meeting with him. Already on it. My team is in position. Derek's next call was to Greg Palmer. Greg, I need you to file emergency motions for protective custody of Tyler and freezing of all marital assets. Use Blake's criminal background as justification. Derek, that's aggressive. Are you sure you want to escalate this quickly? Blake just called an emergency meeting with my wife after I told his partner to leave town. He's not walking away. He's doubling down. Derek's phone buzzed with a text from Tyler's school. Tyler Lawson has been picked up early by his mother for a family emergency. Derek's blood went cold. Blake wasn't just doubling down. He was taking Tyler. Derek immediately called Chloe's phone. When she answered, he could hear Tyler crying in the background. Chloe, where are you taking Tyler? Derek, we need to talk. Blake thinks you might try to interfere with the divorce proceedings. Where are you? Somewhere safe. Blake says you've been making threats. Derek's tactical mind immediately shifted into crisis mode. Blake had convinced Chloe to take Tyler as leverage, either to force Derek's compliance or to establish facts on the ground for custody proceedings. Chloe, listen to me very carefully. Blake Morrison is a professional criminal who specializes in destroying families for money. Amanda Price, his partner, has been lying to you for months. Derek, stop. Blake told me you might try something like this. Chloe, I can prove everything I'm telling you. Blake's real name is Brad Michaels. He's been arrested for fraud and extortion. He's running a scam operation with Amanda and someone named Vincent Cross. Derek, you're scaring me. You should be scared, but not of me. Derek heard Blake's voice in the background, telling Chloe to hang up. Chloe, please, just ask Blake one question. Ask him about Vincent Cross. The line went dead. Derek immediately called Mitch. They've taken Tyler. I need a tactical response team, and I need it now. Derek, slow down. What's the situation? Blake Morrison has convinced my wife to take my son from school. They're using Tyler as leverage to force my compliance with their demands. That's kidnapping. Yes, it is. And I'm not waiting for the legal system to resolve this. Derek, think carefully about what you're planning. If you respond with force, you could lose Tyler permanently. If I don't respond with force, I might lose Tyler permanently anyway. Derek's phone rang. Carlos. Derek, we have a problem. Blake didn't just take your wife and son. He's taken them to Vincent Cross's facility downtown. What kind of facility? It's registered as a family counseling center, but my surveillance shows it's set up like a safe house. Multiple exits, surveillance equipment, communication jammers. This isn't amateur hour. Derek realized Blake wasn't just panicking. He was implementing a prepared contingency plan. Vincent Cross's operation was larger and more sophisticated than Derek had imagined. Carlos, I need the building blueprints, security assessment, and real-time surveillance on all entrances. Derek, what are you planning? I'm planning to get my son back. Derek's next call was to Greg Palmer. Greg, file emergency custody motions immediately. Cite kidnapping, endangerment, and association with known criminals. Derek, where are you? I'm going to get Tyler. Derek, don't do anything that will hurt your custody case. Greg, if I don't get Tyler back today, there won't be a custody case. Derek hung up and called Mitch. I need a full tactical assessment of Vincent Cross's facility. Treat it as a hostage rescue operation. Derek, you can't conduct a military operation in downtown in broad daylight. Watch me. But before Derek could implement any rescue plan, his phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, Mr. Lawson. This is Vincent Cross. Derek felt his blood pressure spike. The voice was calm, professional, and completely confident. Where's my son? Tyler is safe and comfortable. He's currently enjoying video games and pizza while the adults discuss the future. If you hurt him, Mr. Lawson, I have no interest in hurting anyone. I'm a businessman. I solve problems for people who find themselves in impossible situations. What do you want? I want you to understand the reality of your position. Your wife has decided to end her marriage to you. My associates have been helping her plan for a future that doesn't include you. This can proceed smoothly, or it can become complicated. It's already complicated. No, Mr. Lawson. Complicated would be Tyler spending the next several years shuttling between parents who hate each other, wondering why his family fell apart. Complicated would be expensive legal battles that destroy everyone's finances and emotional well-being. Derek realized Vincent Cross was far more dangerous than Blake or Amanda. Where they were emotional manipulators, Cross was a cold strategist who understood exactly how to apply pressure. What are you proposing? A clean resolution. You agree to an uncontested divorce with reasonable terms. Tyler maintains a relationship with both parents. Everyone moves forward with their lives. And if I refuse, then things become complicated for everyone. Your business comes under scrutiny for various regulatory violations that Amanda has discovered. Your finances become public record. Your personal life becomes a matter of legal proceedings that will drag on for years. Derek understood the threat. Cross wasn't just offering a deal. He was threatening total destruction if Derek refused to comply. I need to think about this. Of course. But Mr. Lawson, Tyler has school tomorrow. It would be unfortunate if his routine were disrupted because of adult disagreements. The line went dead. Derek sat in his car, processing what had just occurred. Vincent Cross had escalated the situation beyond a simple romance scam. He was holding Tyler hostage to force Derek's compliance with demands that would strip Derek of everything he'd built. But Cross had made one critical error. He'd assumed Derek would prioritize avoiding confrontation over protecting his son. Derek called Mitch back. Change of plans. I need you to contact Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Kim at Joint Base McCord. Tell her Derek Lawson needs a consultation on domestic terrorism threats involving child endangerment. Derek, you're talking about bringing military resources into a civilian situation. Vincent Cross just declared war on my family. I'm going to show him what war actually looks like. Derek had spent his career neutralizing threats to security. Vincent Cross was about to learn that threatening Derek's son was the most dangerous mistake he could have made. Chapter 7. The Hunter's Gambit. Derek's military training had taught him that the most dangerous moment in any conflict was when the enemy believed they held all the advantages. Vincent Cross was about to learn that confidence could be a fatal weakness. Derek spent Thursday night implementing a plan that would have impressed his former commanding officers. While Cross expected Derek to spend the night agonizing over impossible choices, Derek was instead coordinating with people Cross had never imagined existed. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Kim arrived at Derek's house at 0200 hours Friday morning, accompanied by 2 specialists from the Military Criminal Investigative Service. Sarah had served with Derek in Afghanistan and understood exactly what was at stake. Derek explained the situation. Derek laid out the intelligence files Carlos had compiled, the surveillance evidence Mitch had gathered, and the timeline of Cross's operation against his family. So you're dealing with an organized criminal enterprise that specializes in family destruction for profit. They've taken your son as leverage, and they're threatening to destroy your business if you don't comply with their demands. That's the tactical summary. Sarah studied the photographs of Cross's facility. This isn't a civilian matter anymore. Child endangerment by organized criminals crosses into federal jurisdiction. That's what I was hoping you'd say. One of Sarah's specialists, Agent Martinez, looked up from his laptop. Derek, Cross's operation shows patterns consistent with organized crime. The systematic targeting of families, the use of psychological manipulation, the financial exploitation. This looks like human trafficking disguised as romance scams. Derek felt pieces clicking together. They're not just destroying marriages for money. They're harvesting families for systematic exploitation. Exactly. And that makes Tyler's situation a federal emergency. Sarah stood up. Derek, I'm going to make some calls. By 0800 hours, Cross is going to find himself facing federal agencies he didn't know existed. While Sarah coordinated with federal authorities, Derek implemented the second phase of his plan. He called Carlos. Carlos, I need you to execute Operation Scorched Earth. Derek, are you sure? Once we do this, there's no going back. They took my son. There's already no going back. Operation Scorched Earth was Derek's nuclear option. The simultaneous release of every piece of evidence Carlos had gathered to law enforcement agencies, news media, and professional networks in 3 states. Blake, Amanda, and Cross would wake up Friday morning to find their criminal enterprise exposed to everyone who mattered. But Derek's most important call was to someone Cross would never expect. "Mrs. Morrison? This is Derek Lawson. I need to speak with you about your son, Blake." The elderly woman's voice was confused and concerned. "I'm sorry. Who did you say you were?" "I'm calling about your son, Brad. The one you reported missing 5 years ago when he disappeared after being arrested in Oregon." The silence on the other end of the line told Derek everything he needed to know. "Oh my God, you found him." "Mrs. Morrison, Brad has been operating under the name Blake Morrison. He's involved in criminal activities that have put my 8-year-old son in danger. I need your help." Derek spent the next hour explaining the situation to Blake's mother, a woman who'd been grieving her son's disappearance for 5 years. By the end of the conversation, she was crying and demanding to speak with Brad immediately. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm going to give you the address where Brad is holding my son. I need you to go there and demand to see him. He won't be able to refuse his mother." Derek's psychological warfare was just beginning. Friday morning at 0700 hours, Derek's phone rang. Vincent Cross, no longer sounding confident. "Mr. Lawson, we seem to have some complications this morning." "What kind of complications?" "Federal agents are asking questions about my business. Someone has been spreading false information about my associates." "That's unfortunate." "Mr. Lawson, I think there's been a misunderstanding about the nature of our arrangement." Derek almost smiled. Cross was discovering that Derek wasn't a suburban husband he could intimidate. Derek was a former military intelligence officer who understood how to wage total war. "The only misunderstanding, Cross, is your assumption that I would negotiate with someone who threatens my son. Your son is perfectly safe. My son is being held against his will by criminals. That's not safe. That's kidnapping. Mr. Lawson, I think we need to meet in person to resolve this situation." "We're not meeting anywhere. You're going to release Tyler immediately, or this situation gets much worse for you. I don't think you understand your position. Cross, you're about to discover that you don't understand mine." Derek hung up and immediately called Carlos. Phase 2 is complete. Every law enforcement agency in 3 states now has complete files on Cross's operation. The FBI is issuing warrants as we speak. Derek's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Blake. Meet me at Riverside Park in 1 hour. Come alone. Bring proof that you've called off the federal investigation." Derek forwarded the message to Sarah Kim and added his own text. "The fish is taking the bait." Derek arrived at Riverside Park to find Blake waiting by the river, looking like a man whose world was collapsing. Blake's usual arrogance had been replaced by something approaching panic. "Derek, we need to end this." "Where's Tyler?" "Tyler is safe. But this situation has gotten out of hand." Derek studied Blake's face and realized the man was genuinely frightened. The federal investigation had shattered Blake's confidence and forced him to confront the reality that Derek wasn't a victim he could manipulate. "Blake, you made a fundamental error. You assumed I was like your other targets. What do you want?" "I want my son back. I want you and Amanda to disappear forever. And I want Cross to understand that threatening my family was the worst decision he ever made." "Derek, you don't understand what you're dealing with. Cross isn't just some con artist. He has connections, resources, protection. Blake, Cross is about to discover that I have better connections." Derek's phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "A federal raid's beginning now." Blake's phone immediately started ringing. He looked at the screen and his face went white. "Cross is being arrested," Derek said. "Amanda is being arrested. Their financial accounts are being frozen. Their safe house is being raided. And your mother is waiting at Cross's facility to see her son, Brad." Blake looked like he'd been physically struck. "My mother, she's been worried about you for 5 years, Brad. She thought you were dead." Derek watched Blake's psychological defenses crumble as the reality of his situation became clear. The federal investigation was destroying his criminal operation, but Derek's psychological warfare was destroying Blake himself. "Derek, please. I just need to get Tyler and leave. I don't want anything else. Too late for that. You involved my son in your criminal enterprise. You threatened my family. You tried to destroy my life for profit. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. Blake, you're going to prison. The question is how long you spend there." Derek's phone rang. Sarah Kim. Derek, we have Tyler. He's safe and unharmed. Cross and Amanda are in federal custody. Blake Morrison is the only one still outstanding. Derek looked at Blake, who'd heard enough of the conversation to understand his situation. Blake, you have two choices. You can run and spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder for federal agents. Or you can surrender and hope for a plea deal that gets you out of prison before you're too old to matter. Blake stood up slowly, his hands shaking. Derek, I never meant for it to go this far. Yes, you did. You planned every aspect of this operation. You targeted my wife, manipulated my son, and threatened my family. You meant for it to go exactly this far. Derek stood up and looked Blake in the eyes. But you made one mistake. You assumed I would let you win. Derek pulled out his phone and called 911. I'd like to report the location of Blake Morrison, a federal fugitive wanted for organized crime and child endangerment. As Derek gave the dispatcher their location, Blake Morrison, Brad Michaels, sat down on the park bench and put his head in his hands. His criminal career was over, his operation was destroyed, and his mother was about to learn what her missing son had become. Derek walked away without looking back. Tyler was safe, Cross was neutralized, and Blake was finished. But Derek wasn't done yet. Chloe still had to face the consequences of her choices. Chapter 8. The Unraveling. Derek found Tyler at the federal building Friday afternoon, surrounded by FBI agents and child psychologists who were ensuring he hadn't been traumatized by his ordeal. When Tyler saw Derek, he ran into his father's arms with relief that broke Derek's heart. Daddy, the bad man is gone. Yes, buddy, the bad man is gone forever. Agent Martinez briefed Derek on Tyler's condition. He's remarkably resilient. Blake and Cross treated him well during the time he was with them, probably because they needed him as leverage. But Derek, Tyler understood more about what was happening than they realized. What do you mean? Tyler told us that Blake was lying to his mother about you. Tyler tried to warn Chloe that Blake was dangerous, but she wouldn't listen. Derek felt another piece of his marriage die. Chloe had chosen to believe Blake over her own son. Where's Chloe now? She's being interviewed by federal agents. She's not under arrest, but she's definitely a person of interest in a federal investigation. Derek took Tyler home, where Mitch was waiting with a full security team. Derek's house was now under federal protection while the investigation continued, but Derek knew the real danger was over. Cross's organization was destroyed, Blake was in custody, and Amanda was cooperating with federal prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. Saturday morning, Chloe came home. Derek was in his study when she walked in, looking like someone who'd aged years in a single week. Her confidence was gone, replaced by confusion and something that might have been shame. Derek, we need to talk. Do we? Chloe sat down across from Derek's desk, her hands shaking slightly. The FBI told me everything. About Blake's real name, about his criminal record, about the organization. And I didn't know. Derek, I swear to you, I had no idea. Derek studied his wife's face and realized she was telling the truth. Chloe had been a victim of Blake's manipulation, but that didn't change what she'd done to her family. Chloe, when did you first meet Amanda? About a year ago, at the gym. She was so friendly, so easy to talk to. We became friends, and she encouraged you to talk about our marriage problems. Yes, she was such a good listener. She understood what I was going through. Derek realized Amanda had been cultivating Chloe for months before Blake ever appeared, building emotional dependence and identifying vulnerabilities that Blake could exploit. When did Amanda introduce you to Blake? About 8 months ago. She said she had a friend who'd gone through a similar divorce, someone who could help me understand my options. And you never questioned why a stranger was so interested in helping you leave your husband? Chloe's face flushed. Derek, I was unhappy. Our marriage was struggling. And here was someone who seemed to genuinely care about my feelings. So you share our private information with him. Our financial records, Tyler's school information, my business details. Blake said he needed to understand our situation to help me protect myself in a divorce. Chloe, you gave classified information about my security business to a criminal organization. The full scope of Chloe's betrayal was finally becoming clear to her. She compromised not just their marriage, but Derek's entire livelihood. Derek, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am genuinely sorry. Sorry for which part? The affair? The lies? Putting Tyler in danger? Or destroying my business? Chloe started crying. All of it. I made terrible mistakes. Derek felt nothing as he watched his wife cry. 8 months of lies, manipulation, and betrayal had killed whatever love he'd once felt for her. Chloe, Tyler tried to warn you about Blake. Your own son told you Blake was dangerous, and you chose to believe a criminal over your child. Tyler didn't understand. Tyler understood perfectly. Blake scared him. Blake threatened him. And you ignored your son's instincts because you were more interested in your fantasy than your family. Chloe wiped her eyes and looked at Derek with desperate hope. Derek, can we fix this? Can we go to counseling, work through this together? Derek's response was immediate and final. No. Derek, please. I know I made mistakes, but I was manipulated. I was a victim too. Chloe, you stopped being a victim the moment you chose Blake over Tyler. You stopped being my wife the moment you decided to destroy our family for a con artist. Derek, I love you. I never stopped loving you. You don't love me, Chloe. You never did. If you had loved me, you wouldn't have been vulnerable to Blake's manipulation. If you had loved Tyler, you wouldn't have put him in danger. Derek stood up and walked to his filing cabinet. He pulled out papers Greg Palmer had prepared and handed them to Chloe. Divorce papers. Already filed. You can contest them if you want, but the FBI investigation has documented your cooperation with a criminal organization. Your chances of getting custody or significant assets are essentially zero. Chloe stared at the papers in shock. Derek, you can't take Tyler away from me. I'm not taking Tyler away from you. You gave him away when you chose Blake Morrison over your son's welfare. The courts will give me visitation rights. Maybe, but Tyler will decide whether he wants to see you. And right now, Tyler is angry that his mother chose a criminal over her family. Derek moved toward the door, then turned back. Chloe, you need to understand something. There is no scenario where we reconcile. There is no future where I forgive you. You betrayed our family, endangered our son, and destroyed everything we built together. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. And choices have consequences. Derek, please don't do this. I'm not doing anything. You did this. 8 months ago, you decided our marriage was over. Today, I'm just making it official. Derek left Chloe sitting in his study, staring at divorce papers that would end 20 years of marriage. He found Tyler in the living room, playing video games with forced concentration. Tyler, Mom and I are getting divorced. Do you understand what that means? Tyler paused his game and looked at Derek with eyes that seemed too old for an 8-year-old. It means she chose Blake over us. Derek's heart broke at his son's mature understanding of an adult betrayal. Tyler, I need you to know that none of this is your fault. Mom made bad choices, but that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. If she loved me, she wouldn't have scared me with Blake. Derek realized Tyler had already processed his mother's betrayal and reached his own conclusions. Tyler understood that love required protection, loyalty, and sacrifice, things Chloe had failed to provide. Tyler, do you want to see Mom sometimes? Tyler considered the question seriously. Maybe when I'm older. Well, I can understand why she hurt us. Derek hugged his son, understanding that Tyler had inherited Derek's unforgiving nature. Some betrayals were too fundamental to overlook, too destructive to forgive. Sunday morning, Chloe moved out of their house. Derek watched from his study window as she loaded her belongings into a rental car, occasionally stopping to cry. Tyler stood beside Derek, also watching silently. Is she ever coming back? Tyler asked. Not to live here. This is our home now. Good, Tyler said simply. Derek realized his son had already moved on. Tyler understood that families were built on trust, loyalty, and protection. Chloe had violated all three, and Tyler had written her off with the ruthless clarity of childhood innocence. As Chloe's car disappeared down their street, Derek felt a chapter of his life closing. The marriage was over, the threats were neutralized, and Tyler was safe. But Derek's revenge was not complete. Cross, Blake, and Amanda would face federal prison, but Chloe still needed to understand the full consequences of her choices. Derek had one final lesson to teach his ex-wife about the price of betrayal. Chapter 9. No Forgiveness. 6 months later, Derek sat in his attorney's office reviewing the final divorce settlement. The federal investigation had resulted in plea bargains for Blake and Amanda, 20-year sentences for Cross, and complete vindication for Derek's actions. His security business had actually grown stronger as word spread about how he neutralized a sophisticated criminal threat to his family. Derek, Chloe's attorney, is asking for one final meeting, Greg Palmer said. She wants to discuss the possibility of joint custody. What did you tell them? I told them the custody arrangement was final. Tyler has made his preferences clear. Derek smiled grimly. Tyler had indeed made his preferences clear. In 6 months, Tyler had refused every attempt at reconciliation with his mother. Chloe's supervised visitation rights remained unused because Tyler simply refused to see her. Sir, there's one more thing, Greg continued. Chloe's financial situation has become quite difficult. The divorce settlement left her with minimal assets, and she's struggling to find employment. Not my problem. Derek, I know you feel betrayed, but Chloe is still Tyler's mother. Derek's expression hardened. Greg, Chloe chose to destroy our family for a criminal. She endangered our son and betrayed everything we built together. The fact that she's suffering consequences doesn't create obligations for me. Derek left Greg's office and drove to Tyler's school, where he had a standing appointment to pick up his son every Friday. Tyler was waiting with his backpack and a report card that showed straight A's, something that had become routine since Chloe left. How was school today? Good. Mrs. Patterson said Mom called the school again. Derek felt his jaw tighten. What did she want? She wanted to know if I would talk to her. Mrs. Patterson told her I had to make that choice myself. And what did you tell Mrs. Patterson? Tyler was quiet for a moment. I told her that Mom chose Blake over us. I don't want to talk to people who hurt our family. Derek realized Tyler had inherited his unforgiving nature completely. At 8 years old, Tyler understood that some betrayals were unforgivable. Tyler, you know Mom wasn't trying to hurt us, right? She made bad choices, but she wasn't trying to be mean. Dad, Blake scared me. He threatened you. Mom knew that, and she chose him anyway. That's not making bad choices. That's being mean. Derek was struck by his son's clarity. Tyler had reduced the complex psychology of betrayal to its essential truth. Chloe had chosen to harm her family rather than protect it. That evening, Derek was cooking dinner when his doorbell rang. He opened it to find Chloe standing on his porch, looking desperate and disheveled. Derek, please. I need to talk to Tyler. Tyler doesn't want to see you. He's 8 years old. He doesn't understand what happened. Tyler understands perfectly. You chose Blake Morrison over your family. Tyler has decided he doesn't forgive you. Chloe started crying. Derek, I've lost everything. My job, my apartment, my friends. Everyone knows what happened. I can't even get hired at retail stores because the background checks reveal my involvement with Blake's operation. Derek felt no sympathy. That's what happens when you cooperate with criminals. I was manipulated. The FBI said I was a victim. The FBI said you were manipulated, not that you were blameless. You chose to betray your family, even after Tyler warned you Blake was dangerous. Derek, I'm Tyler's mother. Doesn't that mean anything? Being Tyler's mother meant something when you acted like Tyler's mother. When you stopped protecting him and started endangering him, you stopped being his mother in any way that matters. Tyler appeared behind Derek, having heard the conversation. Mom, Tyler, sweetie, I've missed you so much. Tyler stared at his mother with the cold assessment of someone much older. Why did you choose Blake over us? Tyler, I didn't choose Blake over you. I made mistakes, but I always loved you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have brought the scary man around. You wouldn't have let him threaten Dad. Chloe knelt down, trying to get to Tyler's eye level. Tyler, Blake lied to me. I didn't know he was dangerous. I told you he was dangerous. You didn't believe me. The simple truth of Tyler's statement hit Chloe like a physical blow. Her 8-year-old son had tried to protect their family, and she'd ignored his warnings in favor of a criminal's lies. Tyler, please. Can't we try to be a family again? Tyler looked at his mother with something approaching pity. Mom, we're not a family anymore. You broke our family when you chose Blake. Tyler, families can be fixed. Dad says some things can't be fixed. He says some people don't deserve forgiveness. Chloe looked up at Derek with desperate anger. Derek, he's a child. You're teaching him to hate his mother. I'm teaching him that actions have consequences. You taught him that betrayal destroys families. Derek, please. I'll do anything to make this right. Derek's response was final and brutal. Chloe, there's nothing you could do to make this right. You betrayed your family, endangered your son, and destroyed everything we built together. Tyler has decided he doesn't want a relationship with someone who hurt his family. I support his decision. Tyler, please. Mom, I don't want to see you anymore. You scared me, and you hurt Dad. I don't forgive people who hurt my family. Derek watched his 8-year-old son deliver a verdict that would shape the rest of Chloe's life. Tyler had learned Derek's most important lesson. Some betrayals were unforgivable. Chloe stood up slowly, understanding that she'd lost her son forever. Derek, you've turned him against me. Chloe, you turned him against yourself. Tyler tried to warn you about Blake, and you ignored him. Tyler asked you to protect our family, and you chose to destroy it instead. Tyler doesn't hate you. He just doesn't trust you. And trust, once broken completely, can never be repaired. Derek stepped back and began closing the door. Chloe, don't come back here. Tyler has made his choice, and I will always support Tyler's choices when it comes to protecting himself from people who hurt him. Derek, you can't do this. I'm not doing anything. You did this 8 months ago when you chose Blake Morrison over your family. Derek closed the door and locked it. Through the window, he watched Chloe stand on his porch crying for several minutes before finally walking away. Tyler looked up at Derek. Is she ever coming back? Not unless you want her to. I don't. Derek hugged his son, understanding that Tyler had learned the most important lesson of all. Loyalty was earned, trust was precious, and betrayal was unforgivable. 6 months later, Derek received a letter from Chloe's attorney informing him that Chloe was moving to another state to start over. She was formally relinquishing all parental rights and would not be seeking any further contact with Tyler. Derek showed the letter to Tyler, who is now 9 and even more resolute in his decision. Do you want to say goodbye to Mom before she leaves? Tyler considered the question seriously. No, she already said goodbye when she chose Blake. Derek realized his son had inherited more than just his unforgiving nature. Tyler had inherited his strategic mind and his absolute clarity about right and wrong. That evening, Derek and Tyler sat on their porch, watching the sunset. Tyler was working on homework while Derek reviewed security contracts for his expanding business. Dad, yes. Are you sad that Mom left? Derek considered how to answer honestly. I'm sad that our family was broken, but I'm not sad that the person who broke it is gone. Me too. Derek looked at his son, resilient, brilliant, and absolutely loyal, and realized they'd both survived something that could have destroyed them. Blake Morrison, Amanda Price, and Vincent Cross were in federal prison. Chloe was gone forever, and Derek and Tyler were building a new life based on trust, loyalty, and the understanding that some things were more important than forgiveness. Derek had learned that mercy was a luxury he couldn't afford when his family was threatened. Tyler had learned that love required protection, and protection sometimes required cutting away what was dangerous. Neither of them would ever forget those lessons. Derek never forgave. Derek never forgot. And Derek had taught his son that some betrayals were so fundamental, so destructive, that the only appropriate response was permanent exile from their lives. Tyler had chosen loyalty over sentiment, protection over forgiveness, and truth over comfort. Derek couldn't have been more proud of his son. As the sun set on their quiet street, Derek and Tyler sat together, a family of two who understood that sometimes the most loving thing you could do was refuse to forgive those who chose to hurt you. Some bridges, once burned, were never meant to be rebuilt. And some people, once they showed you who they really were, deserve to be believed the first time. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Hello, and welcome back to Infidelity Tales Lab. We're grateful for each view and comment. Tell us, from which country or city are you watching today? We enjoy connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Blueprints of Deception. Quentin Holbrook stood at the massive floor-to-ceiling windows of his home office, gazing at the Seattle skyline he had helped shape. As one of the Pacific Northwest's most sought-after architects, his designs were both innovative and meticulous, qualities that defined not just his professional life, but his personal one as well. "Daddy, look what I made!" Leo burst into the room, his 12-year-old face bright with enthusiasm as he held up an intricate model building made from specialized architectural blocks, a birthday gift from Quentin. Quentin's stern features softened as he turned to his son. "That's impressive craftsmanship, Leo. The cantilever support system you've created shows real understanding." Leo beamed at the praise. Unlike his mother, who dismissed his architectural interests as nerdy, his father always took his creations seriously. "Mr. Sinclair says I could apply for the Advanced STEM program at Westlake Academy next semester. Your principal called me about that yesterday." "I'm proud of you," Quentin said, ruffling his son's hair. "The tuition increase won't be a problem." "Mom said it's too expensive." Leo's voice dropped, his enthusiasm dimming. "She said maybe I should just focus on regular classes." Something flickered in Quentin's eyes, a momentary calculation. "Don't worry about what your mother says. I'll make sure you get every opportunity." As if summoned by their conversation, Vanessa Holbrook glided into the room, her blonde hair freshly styled, designer sundress perfectly pressed. To outsiders, she was the ideal architect's wife, beautiful, sociable, involved in all the right charities. Only Quentin had begun to see the cracks in her carefully constructed facade. "There you are," she said, ignoring Leo and addressing Quentin directly. "The Montgomery's brunch starts in an hour. You need a change." "I have to finish these concept drawings for the Harbor View project," Quentin replied without looking up from his desk. Vanessa's smile tightened. "Quinn, we've discussed this. These social events are important for your career. The Montgomerys are on the board of the museum that's considering your firm for their new wing." Quentin noted the use of Quinn, a nickname she only employed when manipulating him in public or private. He despised it, but had learned to recognize it as a signal. "You go ahead. I'll catch up later," he said, his voice level. "Leo and I have some work to do on his science project." A flash of irritation crossed Vanessa's face before she regained her composure. "Fine. Don't be too late." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Westlake Academy called about Leo's tuition for next semester. I told them we're considering other options." After she left, Quentin exchanged a look with Leo. "Go get your project materials. We'll work in here." Once alone, Quentin opened a hidden panel in his desk, revealing a small monitor. He tapped a few keys, and a series of surveillance feeds appeared: the driveway, the kitchen, the master bedroom, the living room. A recent addition to the house that Vanessa knew nothing about. Quentin watched as his wife grabbed her phone in the kitchen, checking to ensure she was alone before making a call. "Hey," she purred into the phone. "He's not coming." "I know, I'm trying." "No, he's obsessed with his work, as usual." "Yes, I spoke to the school. Don't worry, I'll convince him. The Cayman account is almost ready." "I miss you too, Dominic." Quentin's jaw tightened as he closed the panel. This wasn't the first such call he'd intercepted. For 3 months, he'd been gathering evidence, building a case as meticulously as he designed his award-winning structures. The foundation was nearly complete. His phone buzzed with a text from Roland Pierce, the former military intelligence officer now working as his private investigator. Subject D visited Palmer Holdings again today. Photos sent to secure server. Financial transactions flagged. Quentin allowed himself a small, cold smile. Palmer Holdings, his wife's family business that she thought he knew nothing about. The same business that her lover, Dominic Rollins, had been systematically helping her drain for the past year. "Daddy." Leo stood in the doorway, his arms full of project materials. "Are you okay? You look different." Quentin's expression immediately softened. "I'm fine, son. Just thinking about foundations, how important it is to build them correctly from the beginning." He helped Leo with his materials. If the foundation is flawed, eventually the whole structure will collapse. As they worked, Quentin made a mental note to call Tanner Calloway, his attorney and oldest friend. Phase 1 was nearly complete. Soon, it would be time to begin the demolition. Chapter 2. Structural Weaknesses. The Harborview security system design has a fatal flaw, Quentin explained to the firm's client, pointing at the blueprints spread across the conference table. If someone wanted to breach it, they'd exploit this vulnerability. You'd never see them coming until it was too late. The security consultant nodded appreciatively. That's why we hired Holbrook Designs. You see the weaknesses others miss. After the meeting, Quentin's business partner, Bryant Norwood, clapped him on the shoulder. Another impressed client. Though sometimes I wonder if your paranoia about security systems stems from your military consulting days. Quentin allowed a rare smile. Few people knew about his 3 years designing secure facilities for military contractors, work that had given him both connections and knowledge that went far beyond typical architectural expertise. Not paranoia if there are real threats, Quentin replied. Speaking of which, I need next Wednesday afternoon off. Personal matter. Everything okay with Vanessa and Leo? Brian asked. Leo's fine, Quentin answered, deliberately omitting Vanessa. Just some family business to handle. Later that afternoon, Quentin sat in Principal Sinclair's office at Westlake Academy, reviewing Leo's academic file. Leo's performance has been exceptional, Douglas Sinclair said, his salt and pepper beard neatly trimmed, his reputation as one of the most respected educators in Seattle well-earned. That's why I was surprised when Mrs. Holbrook called to discuss withdrawal options. Withdrawal? Quentin's voice remained measured despite his anger. There must be some mistake. She mentioned financial considerations and a potential move, Sinclair replied, watching Quentin carefully. She was quite insistent about receiving the refundable portion of next semester's tuition deposit. I see, Quentin said. And when was this conversation? Yesterday. She requested the funds be transferred to her personal account rather than the joint one on file. Quentin leaned forward. Douglas, we've known each other since college. I need to speak candidly. Principal Sinclair nodded, closing Leo's file. Of course, Quinn. My marriage is ending, though Vanessa doesn't know it yet. There's infidelity involved. He paused. Leo will not be leaving Westlake. In fact, I want him enrolled in the advanced STEM program. I'll wire the full year's tuition to the school tomorrow from my personal account. Sinclair's expression softened with understanding. I'm sorry to hear about your situation. Leo is a remarkable young man. He reminds me of you at that age. Keep this between us for now, Quentin said, standing. And if Vanessa contacts you again about withdrawal or finances, please let me know immediately. Of course, Sinclair promised. As Quentin turned to leave, the principal added, Quinn, there's something else you should know. At the spring fundraiser, there was a discrepancy with some of the donation records that Mrs. Holbrook helped process. Nothing was proven, but how much? Quentin interrupted. Almost $20,000. The board decided not to pursue it since an anonymous donation covered the shortfall the next day. Quentin nodded. Thank you, Douglas. That's illuminating. That evening, Quentin took Leo to dinner at their favorite steakhouse, making sure to give Vanessa no advance notice. When they returned home, Vanessa was furious. You can't just disappear with Leo without telling me, she snapped once their son was upstairs. I had tickets for the symphony gala tonight. We were supposed to sit at the Harringtons' table. You mean you had tickets? Quentin corrected calmly. I checked with your assistant. My name wasn't on the list. Vanessa faltered momentarily. That was a mistake. I told Brittany to add you. No, you didn't, Quentin said, pouring himself a bourbon. Just like you didn't tell me about withdrawing Leo from Westlake. Her eyes narrowed. We can't afford the tuition increase. You know how stretched we are with the lake house renovation. The renovation you insisted on, using contractors I've never met, with invoices that don't match the work completed, Quentin replied. Interesting how Dominic Rollins' art gallery is in the same building as Noble Construction. The color drained from Vanessa's face. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. Just making conversation about our finances, Quentin said with a coldness that made Vanessa take a step back. By the way, I handled Leo's tuition today. He's staying at Westlake. You should have discussed this with me first, she said, attempting to regain control. Like you discussed withdrawing him? Or the 20,000 that disappeared from Westlake's spring fundraiser that you organized? Vanessa's mask slipped, genuine fear flickering in her eyes. That's absurd. I need to check on Leo. As she hurried from the room, Quentin received a text from Roland. Subject: D meeting with offshore banking contact tomorrow. Surveillance in place. Quentin finished his bourbon in one swallow. The structural weaknesses were now fully exposed. Time to prepare for controlled demolition. Chapter 3. Breaking Points. The moment that shattered the final illusion came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Quentin had installed a voice-activated recording system throughout their home 3 months earlier, a security measure he'd told Vanessa was necessary after a break-in at Brian's house. The real purpose was documentation, gathering evidence for what he knew was coming. He was in his downtown office when the alert came through on his secure phone. The keyword tuition had been detected in his home kitchen. He opened the encrypted app and listened. I don't care what Quinn says. Vanessa's voice came through with perfect clarity. Leo doesn't need that overpriced school. He can go to public school like Quinn did. What did Holbrook say? A male voice, Dominic Rollins. He's being stubborn about it. Says he's already paid the full year's tuition. That's $60,000 we could use, Dominic said. The property in Costa Rica won't wait forever. I know. I'm working on it, Vanessa replied. Once we have the offshore account set up, we can move everything. Quinn will never know until it's too late. Silence for a moment, then sounds of kissing. Quentin's hand tightened around his phone. How much longer, Van? I'm tired of sneaking around, Dominic said. Just a few more months. I'll get the money for our trip from the tuition refund. Then we can finalize everything while we're away. Quinn is clueless. He trusts me with all the household accounts. What about Leo? Dominic asked, his tone making it clear the boy was an afterthought. He stays with Quinn, obviously. You know I was never cut out for motherhood. Quinn can have his little protege. Quentin ended the recording, his face expressionless despite the rage building inside him. He had suspected the affair, the financial deception, even her indifference toward Leo, but hearing it stated so coldly was still a shock. He dialed Tanner Calloway's private number. It's time, he said when his attorney answered. Initiate everything we discussed. All of it. Are you sure, Quinn? Tanner asked. Once we start this, there's no walking it back. I'm sure. I have the final piece of evidence. She's planning to use Leo's tuition money for a trip with Rollins while they finalize moving my assets offshore. Jesus, Tanner muttered. The custody papers are ready. The financial freeze can happen tonight. What about Leo? I'm picking him up from school in an hour. We'll go to the lakeside property. Make sure the papers are served at exactly 9 a.m. tomorrow. And the other matter? Tanner asked carefully. Proceed as planned, Quentin confirmed. Roland's team is in position. I want everything Rollins owns, everything he hopes for, everything he is. After ending the call, Quentin sat motionless for several minutes, his mind cataloging and organizing the events of the past year. The small inconsistencies in Vanessa's behavior, the unexplained expenses, the gradual emotional withdrawal. He had once loved her, or thought he did. Now, he felt nothing but cold, precise determination. When he picked up Leo from school, the boy immediately sensed something was different. Are we going home, Dad? Leo asked as they drove in the opposite direction. Not tonight, Quentin said. We're going to stay at the cabin for a few days. I thought we could do some fishing. Leo studied his father's face. At 12, he was perceptive, often seeing what adults try to hide. Is this about Mom and that man with the weird laugh? Quentin nearly swerved off the road. What man, Leo? The one who came to the house when you were in Chicago last month. Mom told me he was an art dealer, but I saw them kissing in the kitchen when they thought I was upstairs. Stopping at a red light, Quentin turned to look at his son. Why didn't you tell me? Leo looked down at his hands. Mom said if I told you, it would make you leave us. She said you were already looking for excuses to abandon us for your work. His voice wavered. But that's not true, is it? You wouldn't leave me. Never, Quentin said firmly, reaching over to grip his son's shoulder. I would never leave you, Leo. No matter what happens between your mother and me, you are everything to me. Do you understand? Leo nodded, relief visible in his eyes. What else did your mother tell you, Leo? That we might have to move soon. that you were bad with money and we were going to lose the house unless she fixed things. But that doesn't make sense because I heard you and Uncle Brian talking about how the firm won those big contracts. Quentin's jaw tightened. Your mother lied to you, Leo. We're not in financial trouble, and we're not losing the house. Then why are we going to the cabin? Because tomorrow, things are going to change. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Leo nodded solemnly. Always, Dad. Later that night, after Leo had gone to bed in the cabin's loft bedroom, Quentin sat on the dock overlooking the dark lake, his phone displaying a surveillance feed from his house. He watched Vanessa enter their bedroom with a glass of wine, checking her phone repeatedly. She made a call. He's not answering, she said to Dominic. And Leo's not answering either. They're probably working late again. What about the transfer? Dominic asked. I'll handle it tomorrow once the bank opens. The full refund from Westlake Academy, $60,000. Enough for our Costa Rica trip next month where we'll finalize everything. And Holbrook won't notice? He never checks the household accounts. Too busy with his precious buildings. She laughed. By the time he figures it out, we'll be long gone with everything converted and moved offshore. Quentin ended the feed and opened his email, sending a pre-written message to a secured list of recipients. Tanner, Roland, and 6 others who had specific roles in what would unfold tomorrow. The subject line simply read, Execute. Chapter 4, Controlled Implosion. At precisely 9 a.m., as instructed, the doorbell rang at the Holbrook residence. Vanessa, still in her silk robe and expecting the courier with documents for the tuition refund, opened the door with a practiced smile. Mrs. Holbrook? The severe-looking woman at the door wore a tailored charcoal suit and carried a leather portfolio. I'm Fiona Westbrook from Callaway Legal. I'm here to serve you with these papers. Vanessa's smile faltered. There must be some mistake. My husband's attorney is... Mr. Callaway. Yes, Fiona interrupted. He's representing Mr. Holbrook in this matter. Please sign here to acknowledge receipt. Receipt of what? Vanessa demanded, not taking the papers. Divorce petition citing adultery, financial malfeasance, and abandonment. Emergency custody order for Leonard Holbrook. Temporary injunction freezing all joint assets pending court review. Fiona's voice was clinically detached. If you refuse to accept service, I'm authorized to leave these with any adult resident of the household and document your refusal. Vanessa snatched the papers, her hands trembling. This is ridiculous. Where's Quinn? Where's my son? I'm not at liberty to discuss Mr. Holbrook's whereabouts. The court has granted temporary full custody to Mr. Holbrook on an emergency basis pending the initial hearing. Fiona handed her a business card. Any communication should go through Mr. Callaway's office. Good day, Mrs. Holbrook. As the woman walked away, Vanessa frantically flipped through the papers, her face draining of color as she scanned the detailed allegations. Dates, times, amounts, all meticulously documented. Attached were photos of her with Dominic, transcripts of conversations, bank records showing suspicious transfers. Her phone rang. Dominic. Van, we have a problem. His voice was tight with panic. My accounts are frozen. All of them. The gallery too. What? Vanessa clutched the divorce papers. Quinn knows. He's filed for divorce, taken Leo, frozen everything. That's not possible, Dominic said. How could he know about Costa Rica? About the offshore accounts? I don't know, Vanessa hissed. But these papers have everything. Dates, conversations, bank details. Even his photos of us together at the lake house. The lake house is completely private, Dominic protested. No one could. He's an architect who specializes in security systems. You idiot. Vanessa interrupted. He must have had cameras installed. We need to meet. Now. Dominic's voice had shifted from panic to determination. Pack whatever cash and valuables you have. We'll figure this out. I'll be ready in 20 minutes, Vanessa said, already moving toward the bedroom. 30 miles away, in a small office building owned by one of Quentin's shell companies, Roland Pierce replayed the conversation that had just been captured by the surveillance system still active in the Holbrook home. Beside him, Quentin listened impassively. Right on schedule, Roland commented. Your wife's heading to the Anderson Gallery to meet Rollins. My people are in position. And the financial triggers? Quentin asked. Already activated. Every account they've touched is now flagged for potential fraud investigation. The offshore accounts they thought were secure have been frozen by Interpol, thanks to our friend at the Financial Crimes Division. And Leo's school? Principal Sinclair has been informed that Leo is with you due to a family emergency. The school's security has been enhanced as a precaution, though I doubt Vanessa would go there. Quentin nodded, checking his watch. Time for Phase 2. Is Tanner ready? Court order is already filed. Just awaiting execution. At the Anderson Gallery in downtown Seattle, Dominic Rollins paced the back office, phone pressed to his ear. What do you mean you can't authorize the transfer? I'm the account holder, for God's sake. The bank representative on the other end remained firm. I apologize, Mr. Rollins, but your accounts have been flagged for review. It's an automated security protocol. We cannot override it without proper clearance. Then give me someone who can provide clearance. Dominic shouted, just as Vanessa burst through the door, her face streaked with angry tears. They've taken everything, she said without preamble. The joint accounts, my personal accounts, even my trust fund, all frozen. Dominic ended his call, his handsome face contorted with rage. This is a temporary setback. Quinn can't possibly have legal grounds for this level of financial restriction. You don't understand, Vanessa said, throwing the divorce papers on his desk. Look at the evidence. He has everything. Photos, recordings, financial records. He even has documentation of the money I took from the school fundraiser. As Dominic flipped through the pages, the color gradually drained from his face. This is comprehensive. How long has he been planning this? Does it matter? Vanessa snapped. We need to act now. I have about $20,000 in jewelry at home and maybe $5,000 in cash. What about your emergency funds? Dominic hesitated, averting his eyes. There's a complication. The gallery is leveraged to the hilt. I was counting on the Costa Rica property deal to clear my debts. What are you saying? Vanessa demanded. I'm saying I don't have emergency funds, Dominic admitted. Everything I had was invested in the gallery and the property options. If the accounts are frozen. The gallery's front door chimed, interrupting their conversation. Dominic moved to the office doorway and froze. Two uniformed police officers and a man in a suit stood in the gallery's main room. The suited man approached, showing a badge. Mr. Rollins? I'm Detective Walsh with the Seattle Police Department, Financial Crimes Unit. We have a warrant to search these premises and seize financial records related to an ongoing investigation. Investigation of what? Dominic asked, trying to maintain his composure. Wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit grand theft, the detective replied, handing over the warrant. We need to ask you and Ms. Palmer some questions. Palmer? Dominic looked confused. This is Vanessa Holbrook, my business associate. Detective Walsh consulted his notes. According to our information, she's been using her maiden name, Palmer, for certain financial transactions. Is that incorrect? Vanessa stepped forward. This is absurd. My husband is behind this. It's harassment related to our divorce proceedings that just began today. Ma'am, these investigations began 3 months ago based on suspicious transaction reports filed by multiple financial institutions, Walsh stated flatly. Now, I need both of you to remain here while we execute this search warrant. As the officers began photographing and cataloging the gallery's contents, Vanessa's phone rang. The screen displayed unknown caller. With trembling fingers, she answered. Hello. Van, it's Camila, Quentin's sister, whom Vanessa hadn't spoken to in over a year after a falling out. Is it true? Quinn's filed for divorce and taken Leo. Camila, I can't talk right now, Vanessa whispered, turning away from the detective. Where are you? Quinn's attorneys are looking everywhere for you. There's an emergency court hearing in 2 hours. What hearing? I just got the papers this morning. Quinn's attorneys filed for an emergency hearing citing flight risk after you emptied your closet and took your passport this morning. Camila's voice was tight with disapproval. The judge agreed to hear it based on the evidence presented. Evidence? What evidence? Vanessa's voice rose in panic. Security footage from your house showing you packing, plus some recorded conversation about leaving the country. Van, what the hell were you thinking? Vanessa's mind raced. The house had security cameras Quentin had installed after the break-in of Bryant's, but they were only in the common areas and exterior, not in their bedroom where she'd packed her bag. Unless, I have to go, she said abruptly, ending the call. She turned to find Detective Walsh standing directly behind her. Ms. Holbrook, we'll need your phone as well. The warrant covers electronic devices. As she surrendered her phone, Vanessa finally realized the magnitude of what Quentin had orchestrated. This wasn't just divorce proceedings. This was systematic destruction. Meanwhile, at the lakeside cabin, Quentin sat with Leo on the dock, fishing poles in hand, though neither was paying much attention to the water. Dad, why aren't we going home? Leo asked again. Quentin took a deep breath. Leo, your mother and I are getting a divorce. Do you know what that means? Leo nodded solemnly. It means you won't be married anymore. Tyler's parents got divorced last year. That's right. And right now, things are complicated with your mother. That's why we're staying here for a little while. Because of that man she was kissing? Leo asked bluntly. Quentin nodded. Partly. There are also some problems with money and trust. Leo was quiet for a moment, then asked, Will I still get to see Mom? The question struck Quentin like a physical blow. Despite Vanessa's betrayal and her callous words about Leo, she was still his mother. But Quentin had also heard her true feelings about motherhood, her willingness to abandon Leo. That will be up to the court to decide, Quentin said carefully, and partly up to your mother. She doesn't really want me, Leo said quietly, surprising Quentin with his perception. She gets annoyed when I talk about architecture or when I need help with school stuff. Leo, it's okay, Dad, Leo interrupted. I know Mom loves me in her way, but she doesn't like being a mom. I've known that for a long time. Quentin put his arm around his son's shoulders, marveling at the boy's emotional intelligence. You're an extraordinary young man, Leo. I want you to know that none of this is your fault. I know, Leo said. Mom told Melody that she got trapped when she got pregnant with me. I heard them talking last Christmas. Quentin's jaw tightened. Another betrayal to add to the list. Leo, look at me. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. The absolute best. Don't ever forget that. Leo nodded, leaning against his father's side as they looked out over the still water, waiting for the storm that was about to break. Chapter 5. Structural Collapse. The courtroom was nearly empty when Vanessa arrived, still wearing the clothes she'd hastily thrown on that morning, now rumpled from hours in the police station answering questions. Her attorney, Martin Graves, hastily retained after 3 other lawyers refused to take her case, looked grim. This is highly irregular, he muttered as they took their seats. Emergency custody hearings usually require days of notice, not hours. My husband has connections, Vanessa replied bitterly, and apparently a surveillance system I didn't know about. Graves frowned. About that. The recordings may not be admissible if you weren't aware of them. However, the financial evidence is much more problematic. Did you really transfer school fundraiser money to your personal account? It was a temporary loan, Vanessa hissed. I replaced it the next day. With money from your joint account with your husband, Graves pointed out. That's still misappropriation. Before Vanessa could respond, the side door opened and Quentin entered with Tanner Calloway. Quentin's face was expressionless as he took his seat at the plaintiff's table, not even glancing in Vanessa's direction. Where's Leo? Vanessa demanded, half rising from her chair. Mrs. Holbrook, please take your seat, the clerk admonished. The judge is about to enter. What followed was the most humiliating 90 minutes of Vanessa's life. Judge Patricia Montgomery, a stern woman in her 60s with a reputation for no-nonsense efficiency, reviewed the evidence presented by Tanner with growing disapproval evident in her expression. The surveillance recordings, legally obtained, as Quentin had filed the proper notification with the state when installing the system, clearly showed Vanessa discussing plans to leave the country with money from liquidated joint assets. Financial records demonstrated a pattern of misappropriation. And most damning of all, text messages between Vanessa and Dominic explicitly discussed using Leo's tuition money for their Costa Rica trip. Your Honor, Graves attempted. My client acknowledges some inappropriate communications, but maintains that Mr. Holbrook has orchestrated this situation to appear more severe than it is. She has no intention of fleeing with marital assets. Then perhaps she can explain why she attempted to withdraw the maximum cash amount from 3 different ATMs this morning. Tanner countered smoothly, presenting bank records. Or why travel arrangements to Costa Rica were made in her maiden name 2 days ago. Vanessa gasped, turning to Graves. That's impossible. We never actually booked anything. Judge Montgomery's gavel came down sharply. Mrs. Holbrook addressed the court, not your attorney. After reviewing all evidence, the judge's ruling was decisive. This court finds sufficient evidence of attempted dissipation of marital assets and flight risk to warrant temporary sole legal and physical custody of Leonard Holbrook to his father, Quentin Holbrook. All marital assets will remain frozen pending further hearings, with the exception of a $3,000 monthly allowance to Mrs. Holbrook for living expenses. Mrs. Holbrook is ordered to surrender her passport to the court within 24 hours. A full hearing will be scheduled in 30 days. As Vanessa sat in stunned silence, her phone buzzed with a text from a number she didn't recognize. Dominic's being questioned about the Palmer Holdings transfers. Police found documents in his gallery safe. He's offering testimony against you for immunity. When she looked up, Quentin was watching her, his expression still impassive. For a brief moment, their eyes met. There was no anger in his gaze, no triumph, only cold finality. Outside the courtroom, reporters had somehow gotten wind of the hearing. Cameras flashed as Quentin and Tanner emerged, both declining comment. When Vanessa appeared moments later, the questions became shouts. Mrs. Holbrook, is it true you embezzled from a school charity? Did you plan to flee the country with your lover? Why did you try to pull your son from his private school? Vanessa pushed through the chaos, Graves attempting to shield her from the worst of it. When they reached the parking lot, she rounded on him. How do they know? The hearing was closed. Court records are public, Graves said wearily. And your husband's firm just happens to be designing the new courthouse edition. He has connections throughout the system. So that's it? He wins? Takes my son, freezes my assets, humiliates me publicly. Mrs. Holbrook, with all due respect, the evidence against you is substantial. And this is just the beginning. He handed her a business card. This is my colleague who specializes in criminal defense. You should call her immediately regarding the financial transactions under investigation. Criminal defense? Vanessa repeated incredulously. For using my own family's company? For using your position as a board member of Palmer Holdings to authorize transfers without proper approval from other board members, Graves clarified. The company's legal counsel filed a complaint this morning. That's impossible, Vanessa whispered. I'm a majority shareholder. Not anymore, apparently, Graves said. According to the filings, your shares were transferred last month to a trust for your son, with your husband as trustee. There's a signature on the transfer documents that appears to be yours. Vanessa's mind raced, then settled on a memory, a stack of papers Quentin had asked her to sign related to Leo's college fund. She'd barely glanced at them, trusting that her husband was handling the technical details as he always did. He tricked me, she realized aloud. He's been planning this for months. Perhaps, Graves conceded, but the signatures were verified by 2 independent notaries. Contesting them would be difficult. As Vanessa drove to her sister Audrey's house, the only place she had to go now that the marital home was off limits by court order, her phone rang. Unknown number again. Hello, she answered warily. You stupid, selfish bitch. Dominic's voice was a furious hiss. Do you have any idea what you've done? What I've done? Vanessa nearly swerved off the road. Your accounts were frozen too. They found everything, Vanessa. The transfers from Palmer Holdings, the forged authorizations, the shell companies. They know I was accessing the company's funds through you. That's not possible, Vanessa insisted. Those transactions were untraceable. You said so yourself. Dominic laughed bitterly. Nothing is untraceable when someone knows where to look. Your husband didn't just stumble onto us. He's been 10 steps ahead the whole time. What are you saying? I'm saying your architect husband built a fucking trap, and we walked right into it. Dominic shouted. The Costa Rica property, owned by one of his shell companies, the offshore bank. They have a security system designed by Holbrook Security Consulting. The detective who questioned me? former client of your husband. Vanessa pulled over, her hands shaking too badly to drive. What are they offering you? Testimony for immunity, Dominic admitted. They have enough to charge me with wire fraud and money laundering. 20 years, Vanessa. You're going to testify against me? After everything? I'm not going to prison for you, Dominic said coldly. Your husband made sure there was an escape hatch for only one of us. Guess who that is? Dominic. It's over, Vanessa. You're on your own. The line went dead. Vanessa sat in her car for a long time, watching the Seattle rain blur the windshield, trying to comprehend how completely her life had collapsed in less than 12 hours. Her marriage, her son, her lover, her family's company, her financial security, all gone. Her phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number again. The necklace you're wearing is monitored. Remove it now and leave it in the car. Vanessa's hand flew to her throat, fingers closing around the diamond pendant Quentin had given her for their 10th anniversary. She'd always assumed the small blue light was decorative, part of the custom setting he designed. With shaking fingers, she unfastened the clasp and examined the pendant closely. There, almost invisibly embedded in the setting, was a miniature tracking device. As the full implications of Quentin's meticulous planning washed over her, Vanessa's phone rang once more. This time, the caller ID showed Quinn. When she answered, there was a moment of silence before Quentin spoke, his voice as calm and measured as always. You should have told me you wanted a divorce, Vanessa. I would have given you one. Clean, simple, dignified. He paused. But you tried to take my son. You lied to him about me. You planned to steal my money and disappear. Quinn, please, she began, her voice breaking. I'm not calling to negotiate, he interrupted. I'm calling to inform you that in exactly 2 minutes, the story will break on every major news outlet. Financial fraud investigation at Palmer Holdings. Charity embezzlement. Affair with suspected con artist Dominic Rollins, whose real name, by the way, is Peter Dennison, a fact I discovered within a week of your first meeting with him. You can't do this, Vanessa whispered. My parents' company, my family's reputation, should have been considerations before you decided to betray everyone who trusted you. Quentin finished for her. The company will survive under new management. Leo's trust now holds controlling interest with your sister Audrey as acting CEO. Audrey? She's working with you. She approached me 4 months ago with concerns about unusual transactions you were authorizing, Quentin explained. Unlike you, she actually reads financial reports. A notification chimed on Vanessa's phone, a breaking news alert. Just as Quentin had predicted. Why are you doing this? Vanessa asked, tears streaming down her face. If you knew about everything months ago, why not just divorce me then? Because you were willing to damage our son to fuel your affair, Quentin replied, a rare edge of emotion finally breaking through his control facade. You told him I might abandon him. You used him as a pawn. That's when I decided you wouldn't just lose me. You'd lose everything. The line went dead, leaving Vanessa staring at the news alert lighting up her phone. Palmer Holdings under investigation. CEO's daughter implicated in financial fraud scheme. Chapter 6. The Point of No Return. 3 weeks after serving the divorce papers, Quentin sat in Tanner Calloway's office reviewing settlement offers. The legal pad between them was covered with numbers, terms, and conditions. She's desperate, Tanner observed, tapping a counterproposal received that morning, offering to waive all claims to marital assets in exchange for dropped charges and restored visitation rights with Leo. The charges aren't mine to drop, Quentin replied. That's between Vanessa, Palmer Holdings, and the prosecutor's office. True, but you have influence. Audrey respects you, and the DA is your former client from the courthouse project. One word from you could change Vanessa's situation significantly. Quentin leaned back, considering. What's your advice as my attorney? Take the deal, Tanner said promptly. It gives you everything you wanted, full custody, all assets, clean break, without a protracted court battle that could traumatize Leo. And, as my friend, Tanner sighed, removing his glasses to rub the bridge of his nose. As your friend, I'm worried about what this vendetta is doing to you, Quinn. I've known you since college. You've always been controlled, disciplined, but this level of calculated destruction. He shook his head. You've ruined her, Quinn. She's facing potential criminal charges, public humiliation, financial devastation. Is that enough? No, Quentin said simply. It isn't. What more could you possibly want? Justice, Quentin replied. Dominic walks away with immunity while Vanessa faces charges for crimes they committed together. That's not acceptable. So this is about Rollins now. It's about accountability. Consequences. Quentin stood, moving to the window, overlooking the Seattle skyline. They conspired to steal from me, from Leo, from Palmer Holdings. They planned to disappear with millions. And most unforgivably, they used my son as a pawn. Tanner studied his oldest friend, concern evident in his expression. The hearing is tomorrow. What do you want to do about Vanessa's offer? Reject it, Quentin said without hesitation. Counter with the original terms. Full assets and custody to me. Supervised visitation for Vanessa contingent on completion of psychiatric evaluation and parenting classes, and no intervention on the criminal matters. She'll never accept those terms, Tanner warned. She will when she realizes the alternative. Which is? Quentin turned from the window, his expression resolute. Rollins' team has uncovered 3 previous identity frauds by Rollins. In each case, he seduced wealthy, married women, convinced them to embezzle funds from family businesses, then disappeared with the money, leaving them to face consequences alone. And you're just now mentioning this? Tanner asked incredulously. I've been waiting for the right moment, Quentin replied. Tomorrow morning, Rollins will be arrested for these previous frauds. Without his testimony, the immunity deal collapses. Vanessa will face full charges as the primary actor rather than an accessory. Tanner shook his head in disbelief. You've thought of everything, haven't you? That's my job, Quentin said. As an architect, I have to anticipate every possibility, every weakness, every potential point of failure. Quinn, Tanner said carefully, have you considered what all this might do to Leo? He still loves his mother, despite everything. For the first time, Quentin's composure wavered slightly. Leo has been seeing Dr. Morrison twice a week. She says he's processing things remarkably well. He understands more than we give him credit for. And what about you? Tanner pressed. You haven't taken time to process any of this. You've been in tactical mode for months. I'm fine, Quentin said dismissively. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you've turned into someone I barely recognize. The Quinn Holbrook I know designs buildings. This Quinn Holbrook designs destruction. Quentin was silent for a long moment before responding. When I discovered what they were planning, I had a choice. I could simply divorce Vanessa, fight for custody, move on with my life, or I could ensure she never had the power to hurt Leo or me again. His eyes met Tanner's. I chose the latter, and I'd make the same choice 1,000 times over. The day of the hearing arrived with unexpected developments. As Quentin had predicted, Dominic Rollins was arrested that morning on charges related to his previous frauds. The news spread quickly through the courthouse, reaching Vanessa just minutes before the proceedings were to begin. She burst into the conference room where Quentin and Tanner were reviewing documents, her face ashen, her attorney trailing helplessly behind her. You did this, she accused, pointing a shaking finger at Quentin. You knew about Dominic's past all along. Mrs. Holbrook, this is highly inappropriate, Tanner began, but Quentin held up a hand to silence him. Yes, he admitted calmly. I knew within days of your first meeting with him. His pattern is consistent. Target wealthy, married women, encourage them to embezzle from family businesses, then disappear with the money once accounts are set up. Why didn't you warn me? Vanessa demanded, tears welling in her eyes. Would you have listened? Quentin countered. Or would you have dismissed it as jealousy, as an attempt to control you? Vanessa had no answer, knowing he was right. The offer on the table stands, Quentin continued. Full asset and custody transfer to me. Supervised visitation rights for you. Conditional on completion of court-ordered psychiatric evaluation and parenting classes. And the criminal charges? Her attorney asked. Not my jurisdiction, Quentin replied. Your client committed crimes. Whether as a willing participant or as someone manipulated by a con artist, is for the court to decide. I want to see Leo, Vanessa said, her voice breaking. After the hearing, depending on the outcome, Quentin said, Dr. Morrison believes it would be beneficial for him to have a supervised reunion with you. The child psychologist? Vanessa looked surprised. You've had him in therapy? Of course, Quentin replied, a rare flash of anger breaking through. Our son discovered his mother was having an affair, was lied to about his father's intentions, and was nearly pulled from the school he loves. Did you think I would just hope he sorts it out on his own? For perhaps the first time, Vanessa seemed to truly grasp the enormity of the damage she had caused. I never meant to hurt Leo, she whispered. But you did, Quentin said simply. Actions have consequences, Vanessa. It's time to face yours. The hearing proceeded as Quentin had orchestrated. With Dominic's immunity deal collapsed and the full evidence of financial malfeasance presented, the judge ruled entirely in Quentin's favor. Vanessa, faced with the reality of potential criminal charges without Dominic's testimony to mitigate her role, agreed to all terms. As she signed the final documents, she asked quietly, Was any of it real, Quint? Did you ever actually love me? Quentin paused, considering the question. Yes, he finally said. I did love you, but you didn't just betray that love. You weaponized it. You used my trust, my focus on work, my devotion to Leo as tools against me. I didn't start out planning any of this, Vanessa said. It just happened. Dominic made me feel special, wanted. No, Quentin corrected her. You made choices, every step of the way. No one forced you to steal from the school fundraiser. No one forced you to lie to Leo about me. No one forced you to plan an escape with millions in stolen funds. And now you've taken everything from me, Vanessa said bitterly. Not everything, Quentin countered. You still have your freedom for now. You still have the possibility of a relationship with Leo, if you earn it. That's more than you planned to leave me with. As Vanessa was led away by her attorney, her once perfect appearance now disheveled, her confident posture now defeated, Quentin felt no satisfaction, no triumph, only a cold certainty that justice had been served. Later that evening, when he returned to the new apartment he and Leo had moved into while the house was being renovated, he found his son waiting anxiously. How did it go? Leo asked. Is Mom going to jail? Quentin sat beside him on the couch. That's still being decided. But the divorce is final, and you'll be staying with me, just as we planned. Will I get to see Mom? Yes, if you want to, Quentin assured him. Dr. Morrison will be there too, to help you both talk about what happened. Leo nodded thoughtfully. Dad, are you still angry at Mom? Quentin considered the question carefully. I'm disappointed in the choices she made. I'm sad about what those choices have done to our family. But I'm focused on moving forward with you, not looking back at her. I heard Uncle Tanner on the phone, Leo admitted. He said you destroyed Mom. That doesn't sound like moving forward. Quentin sighed, reminded again of his son's perceptiveness. Adults sometimes do things that are hard to understand, Leo. Your mother broke promises and trust in very serious ways. There had to be consequences for that. Like when I lied about breaking Brian's model last year, and you grounded me for a month? Despite everything, Quentin smiled. Something like that, but much more serious. The important thing for you to know is that both your mother and I love you, even though we made mistakes with each other. I know, Leo said. Dr. Morrison says it's not my job to fix grown-up problems. She's right, Quentin agreed, pulling his son into a hug. That's very wise advice. As Leo fell asleep that night, Quentin stood at the apartment window, looking out at the city lights. His phone buzzed with a text from Roland. Rollins cooperating with authorities on previous frauds, offering information on international network. Your name came up as the one who exposed the operation. Interpol sends thanks. Another text followed from Tanner. Prosecutor offering Vanessa deal. Testimony against Palmer Holdings board members who were complicit in exchange for reduced charges. Your thoughts? Quentin didn't reply immediately. The destruction was nearly complete, the vengeance nearly fulfilled. Yet he felt no closure, no relief. Only the hollow certainty that he had done what was necessary to protect himself and his son from those who had betrayed them. His phone rang. Camila, his sister. It's done, he said when he answered. I know, she replied. And now what, Quinn? What happens after vengeance? Rebuilding, he said simply. For Leo. For me. Just make sure there's still a human being left to do that rebuilding, Camila warned. I've never seen this side of you before, little brother. It's frightening. It was always there, Quentin admitted. I just never had reason to unleash it before. Well, put it back in its cage now, Camila advised. That boy needs his father, not an avenging angel. After ending the call, Quentin checked on Leo one more time, watching his son's peaceful sleep with a surge of protective love. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Vanessa's supervised visit, continued legal proceedings, the ongoing renovation of their home. But tonight, as the architects of deception had been exposed and their structures demolished, Quentin allowed himself to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, the foundations for something new and stronger could begin to take shape. Chapter 7. Surveying the Ruins. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Quentin stood in the newly renovated kitchen of their home, watching Leo prepare his science project materials with methodical precision. The house had been completely transformed, walls moved, security systems upgraded, and all traces of Vanessa removed. It was a fresh start, symbolically and literally. Dad, did you see the new designs for the waterfront project? Leo asked, carefully measuring ingredients for his experiment. They're using your cantilevered glass concept for the observation deck. I saw, Quentin replied, smiling at his son's interest. At 13 now, Leo was growing taller, his features beginning to mature into a striking blend of both parents. Bryant thinks we might win a National Design Award for it. Cool, Leo said, then hesitated before adding, Mom might get out early. For good behavior. Quentin's hands stilled on the coffee mug he was holding. Vanessa had eventually been sentenced to 18 months for financial fraud, her sentence reduced from the potential 5 years due to her cooperation with authorities. The scandal had rocked Seattle's social and business circles, with several Palmer Holdings board members also facing charges for their complicity in years of financial malfeasance that predated even Vanessa's involvement. What do you feel about that? Quentin asked carefully. Leo shrugged, not meeting his father's eyes. Okay, I guess. Dr. Morrison says it's normal to still care about someone even when they've done bad things. She's right, Quentin acknowledged. Your mother made serious mistakes, but she's still your mother. She writes me letters every week, Leo continued. She never mentions Dominic anymore. Says she was stupid and selfish. Quentin nodded, maintaining a neutral expression despite his internal reservations. Vanessa's prison correspondence with Leo had been approved by Dr. Morrison as potentially healing for their son, though Quentin reviewed each letter before giving it to Leo, a condition of the custody agreement. The supervised visits have been going better, Leo added. She actually asked about my science fair project last time instead of just talking about herself. That's good, Quentin said, though he wondered if Vanessa's apparent growth was genuine or simply another performance. In his experience, people rarely changed their fundamental nature. The doorbell rang, interrupting their conversation. Quentin checked the security panel. It was Tanner, unexpected but not unwelcome. When Quentin opened the door, his oldest friend stood there with an uncharacteristically serious expression. We need to talk, Tanner said quietly. Privately. After making sure Leo was occupied with his project, Quentin led Tanner to his home office, a completely redesigned space with enhanced soundproofing and security. What's going on? Quentin asked once the door was closed. Rollins is dead, Tanner said without preamble. Quentin's expression didn't change. Ow! Prison fight, apparently, though the circumstances are suspicious. He was in protective custody after testifying against his former associates. Someone still got to him. And you're telling me this because... Tanner gave him a hard look. Cut the act, Quinn. Did you have anything to do with this? No, Quentin replied honestly, though I can't say I'm particularly devastated by the news. The timing is problematic, Tanner continued. Vanessa's parole hearing is next month. Rollins was supposed to testify about how he manipulated her, testimony that would have helped her case. Again, not my concern, Quentin said coldly. Vanessa made her choices. Damn it, Quinn, Tanner exploded, uncharacteristically losing his composure. When does this end? You've won. You have Leo, the house, the company, everything. Vanessa has been publicly humiliated, financially ruined, and imprisoned. Isn't that enough? I told you. I had nothing to do with Rollins' death, Quentin repeated, though whoever did the world a favor. Tanner studied his friend intently. You know, when this all started, I supported you completely. Vanessa and Rollins deserve consequences for what they planned. But somewhere along the way, something changed. You crossed from justice into vengeance. Is there really a difference? Quentin asked. Yes, and the fact that you can't see it anymore is what worries me. Tanner sighed heavily. The prosecutor called me this morning. With Rollins dead, they're revisiting some aspects of Vanessa's case. There's a theory circulating that you might have orchestrated more of this than anyone realized. Quentin raised an eyebrow. Meaning some people are wondering if you set Vanessa up, manipulated events to make her actions appear worse than they were. That's absurd, Quentin said dismissively. She embezzled from her family's company. She planned to flee the country with stolen money. She conspired with a known con artist. All of that is documented and proven. Yes, but the question now is whether you knew about Rollins from the beginning and deliberately let the situation develop to maximize her downfall. Quentin was silent for a long moment. The truth was complex. He had indeed discovered Rollins' true identity early in the affair, and he had allowed certain events to unfold rather than confronting Vanessa immediately. But his actions have been defensive, protective, not manipulative. Whatever theories they're developing, they can't prove them, Quentin finally said. Because they're not true. Tanner didn't look convinced. There's more. Audrey Palmer visited Vanessa in prison last week. Their first contact since the scandal broke. According to my source, Audrey left looking shaken. 2 days later, she requested all the digital forensic reports from the Palmer Holdings investigation. Now Quentin's interest was piqued. Why would she do that? The case is closed. Maybe she found something that didn't add up, Tanner suggested. Look, Quinn, I'm telling you this as your friend. If there's anything at all, that could come back to haunt you, now's the time to tell me. There isn't, Quentin insisted. Everything I did was legal, if not particularly merciful. The conversation was interrupted by Leo knocking on the office door. Dad? Uncle Tanner? My experiment is ready if you want to see it. Tanner's serious expression immediately softened. Wouldn't miss it for the world, champ. As they followed Leo to the kitchen, Tanner murmured to Quentin, just be careful. This isn't over yet. 2 days later, Quentin received an unexpected call from Audrey Palmer, Vanessa's sister and now CEO of Palmer Holdings. He had maintained a cordial professional relationship with her throughout the ordeal, united by their shared determination to save the company from the damage Vanessa and the corrupt board members had caused. I need to see you, Audrey said without preamble. Today, if possible. It's important. They met at a quiet cafe far from both their offices, a neutral location where they were unlikely to be recognized. Audrey looked exhausted, the stress of rebuilding her family's company evident in the new lines around her eyes. Thank you for meeting me, she said after they had ordered coffee. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't critically important. What's going on, Audrey? She placed a thin file folder on the table between them. I visited Vanessa last week. She told me something that seemed impossible, so I decided to investigate myself. And what did my ex-wife claim? Quentin asked, not touching the folder. That some of the financial records used to convict her were falsified. Specifically, the transactions showing her transferring funds to Rollins' offshore accounts. Quentin's expression remained neutral. The evidence was verified by forensic accountants and accepted by the court. Yes, but those verifications relied on digital records that originated from Palmer Holdings servers whose security system was designed by your consulting firm. Are you accusing me of something, Audrey? She shook her head. Not accusing, asking. I've reviewed the records myself now. There are inconsistencies in the timestamps, subtle but present. Digital forensics isn't an exact science, Quentin replied. Timestamps can be affected by server synchronization issues, daylight saving time adjustments, any number of factors. That's what I told myself, Audrey agreed. But then I had an independent expert examine them. She tapped the folder. His conclusion is that the records were altered approximately 1 week before the evidence was submitted to authorities. Professionally altered, but altered nonetheless. Quentin met her gaze steadily. And you think I did this? I think my sister is self-absorbed, materialistic, and deeply flawed, Audrey said carefully. I think she betrayed you and was planning something with Rollins that likely involved misused funds. But I also think the extent of her financial crimes may have been enhanced. To what end? Vanessa was guilty of serious offenses regardless. To ensure she had no chance of maintaining custody of Leo, Audrey suggested. To guarantee her imprisonment rather than probation. To destroy her so completely she could never recover. Quentin was silent, considering his response carefully. Audrey had always been the more perceptive Palmer sister, the one who valued substance over appearance. What do you want, Audrey? The truth, for starters, she replied. And then, depending on that truth, perhaps a reconsideration of your position on Vanessa's parole hearing. Even if your theory were correct, and I'm not saying it is, Vanessa still committed serious crimes. She still planned to abandon her son and flee the country with stolen money. Yes, Audrey acknowledged, and she's paid a heavy price. Her reputation is ruined. Her marriage is over. Her relationship with her son is damaged, perhaps beyond repair. The question is whether the additional punishment of continued imprisonment serves any purpose other than your desire for vengeance. Quentin leaned back, studying Vanessa's sister thoughtfully. You're asking me to support her parole. I'm asking you to consider whether your vendetta has gone far enough, Audrey corrected. Vanessa hurt you terribly, and she deserves consequences. But Leo still loves his mother, Quentin. Her continued imprisonment hurts him too. The mention of Leo struck home in a way nothing else could have. Quentin had justified every action, every decision as necessary to protect his son. But had he gone too far? Had his pursuit of justice become something else entirely? I'll think about it, he finally said, standing to leave. That's all I can promise right now. Later that night, after Leo had gone to bed, Quentin sat alone in his office, considering Audrey's words. On his desk lay 2 items, the file she had given him, which he had yet to open, and a thin stack of letters from Vanessa to Leo that he had intercepted and never delivered, judging them too manipulative or potentially harmful. His phone rang. Roland Pierce, the private investigator. I've got the information you requested, Roland said when Quentin answered. Rollins' death wasn't random. It was a professional hit, made to look like a typical prison altercation. Who ordered it? That's where it gets interesting, Roland continued. The money trail leads back to a shell corporation that's ultimately owned by Harlan Westfield. Quentin frowned. Westfield? The real estate developer? The same. And here's the connection. Westfield was negotiating to buy 3 properties from Rollins right before you exposed him. Properties that then became worthless when Rollins' assets were frozen and investigated. So Westfield had Rollins killed out of revenge for a failed business deal? Seems excessive. There's more, Roland said. One of those properties adjacent, a major development Westfield is planning. Without it, the project is significantly less valuable. With Rollins dead and the property in legal limbo, Westfield is now positioning to acquire it at a fraction of the original price. Keep digging, Quentin instructed. I want everything you can find on Westfield's connection to this. After ending the call, Quentin finally opened the file Audrey had given him. The technical analysis was complex but clear in its conclusion. Someone with advanced knowledge of Palmer Holdings security systems had altered transaction records to make Vanessa's financial malfeasance appear more extensive than it actually was. The realization was uncomfortable. While Quentin hadn't personally altered any records, he had instructed Roland to find everything on Vanessa and Rollins, a deliberately vague directive that he now recognized could have been interpreted as permission to enhance the evidence if necessary. Had his determination to ensure Vanessa faced maximum consequences led him to cross a line he had never intended to cross? And if so, what did that make him? Troubled, Quentin picked up the letters he had kept from Leo. Reading through them now, he recognized that while some contained subtle manipulations, others showed genuine remorse and love for their son. By withholding them all, Had he been protecting Leo or punishing Vanessa? As dawn broke over Seattle, Quentin made a decision. His vengeance had gone far enough. Perhaps too far. It was time to focus not on destruction, but on rebuilding, for Leo's sake, if not for his own. Chapter 8. New Blueprints. The Seattle Correctional Facility for Women was a stark, institutional building that belied its modern rehabilitation philosophy. Quentin had never visited before, having arranged for Leo's supervised visits with Vanessa to occur at a family counseling center instead. As he was processed through security, he wondered what he would find: the polished, manipulative woman he had married, or the broken, repentant figure Leo described from his visits. Perhaps neither. Perhaps something in between. Vanessa was already seated in the visitation room when he entered. The orange jumpsuit hung loosely on her frame. Her once perfect hair now simply pulled back, her face devoid of makeup. She looked up in shock when she saw him. Quinn. The nickname slipped out automatically. Then she corrected herself. Quentin. I didn't expect. They just told me I had a visitor. Hello, Vanessa, he said, taking the seat opposite her. You look well. A bitter laugh escaped her. Now who's the liar? But there was no real venom in her words, only tired resignation. I spoke with Audrey, Quentin began without preamble. She shared her concerns about some of the evidence in your case. Vanessa's eyes widened slightly. And you believe her? I'm looking into it, he replied carefully. If there were irregularities in how the evidence was presented, that would be concerning. Concerning, Vanessa repeated. That's one word for it. Criminal might be another. Quentin's expression remained impassive. I didn't come here to debate terminology. I came to tell you that I won't oppose your parole. Vanessa stared at him in disbelief. Why? What's changed? Leo misses his mother, Quentin said simply. Despite everything, he loves you. Keeping you in here serves no purpose except vengeance. And that's not a lesson I want to teach my son. Our son, Vanessa corrected softly. Quentin inclined his head in acknowledgement. Our son. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history and shattered marriage hanging between them. I was going to leave you, Vanessa finally said. That part was true, but not with millions, not with everything you're claiming. Dominic convinced me you were hiding assets, that you were planning to leave me with nothing. She shook her head. I was a fool to believe him. Yes, you were, Quentin agreed. But perhaps I was equally foolish in how I responded. What do you mean? Quentin chose his words carefully. When I discovered your affair and your plans, I had options. I could have confronted you immediately, filed for divorce, worked through the legal system in a straightforward manner. Instead, I chose to orchestrate your complete destruction. Because I betrayed you, Vanessa said. Because I was going to take Leo from his school. Partly, Quentin admitted. But there was more to it than that. I wanted you to suffer as I had suffered. I wanted to ensure you could never threaten what was mine again. So I built a trap, and I waited for you to walk into it. And then you sprung it perfectly, Vanessa concluded, leaving me with nothing. No husband, no son, no money, no freedom, no reputation. That was the plan, Quentin acknowledged. And it worked exactly as designed. So why the change of heart now? Quentin considered the question. Because the architect has to know when the destruction phase is complete and when it's time to begin rebuilding. And because Leo deserves better than a father consumed by vengeance or a mother imprisoned for crimes that may have been exaggerated. Vanessa leaned forward, studying his face intently. Are you admitting the evidence was falsified? I'm acknowledging the possibility that in the pursuit of justice, certain aspects may have been emphasized while others were minimized. Quentin replied carefully. The legal term would be prosecutorial discretion. Always the precise language, Vanessa said with a flash of her old fire. You can't even admit you set me up. I didn't falsify evidence, Quentin stated firmly, but I may have allowed certain assumptions to go unchallenged when they served my purposes. Vanessa sat back, processing his words. And now, what do you want from me? I want what's best for Leo, Quentin said. He needs his mother in his life. A mother who puts his needs above her own, who doesn't lie to him or manipulate him, who doesn't use him as a pawn in adult games. And you think I can be that mother now? I think you have the opportunity to try, Quentin replied. Whether you take it is up to you. What about us? Vanessa asked. Is there any chance? No, Quentin interrupted firmly. That's non-negotiable. Our marriage is over, Vanessa. The trust is irreparably broken. But we can learn to be civil co-parents for Leo's sake. The disappointment in her eyes was genuine, Quentin noted. Perhaps there had been real feelings there once, before ambition and selfishness had corrupted them. Understand, she said quietly, and I accept those terms. All I want now is a chance to rebuild my relationship with my son. That starts with honesty, Quentin told her. Complete honesty with Leo, with the parole board, with yourself. No more manipulation, no more half-truths. I'm trying, Vanessa said, and for perhaps the first time since he'd known her, Quentin believed she was being sincerely vulnerable. Prison gives you a lot of time to think, to see yourself clearly. I don't like much of what I see, Quinn. The use of his nickname didn't bother him this time. Good. That's the beginning of change. As the visit concluded, Vanessa asked one final question. Did you ever love me, Quinn? Really love me? Quentin paused at the door. Yes, he said honestly. But I think we loved different versions of each other. Versions that never truly existed. 2 weeks later, Quentin sat beside Leo in the parole hearing room, listening as Vanessa addressed the board. Gone was the entitled socialite, replaced by a woman who spoke with quiet dignity about her mistakes, her regrets, and her hopes for redemption. When it was Quentin's turn to speak, he surprised everyone, perhaps even himself, with his statement. Vanessa Holbrook committed serious breaches of trust, both personal and professional, he began. But she has served significant time for these offenses, and continued incarceration serves neither justice nor the best interests of our son. I believe she has genuinely reflected on her actions and is prepared to rebuild her life in a more honest way. As Leo's father, I support her release on appropriate parole conditions, including continued counseling and monitored visitation as we work toward a healthy co-parenting relationship. The parole was granted with strict conditions including financial oversight, regular counseling, and a prohibition on leaving the state. As Vanessa was led from the room, her eyes met Quentin's in wordless gratitude. Outside the hearing room, Leo asked the question Quentin had been expecting. Does this mean Mom's coming home? Not to our home, Quentin explained gently, but she'll be living nearby, and you'll be able to see her regularly. First with Dr. Morrison present, then eventually on your own if things go well. Are you still mad at her? Leo asked perceptively. Quentin considered the question carefully. I'm disappointed in the choices she made, but I'm not angry anymore. Sometimes holding on to anger hurts us more than the person we're angry with. Like carrying a hot coal to throw at someone else, Leo said wisely. Exactly like that, Quentin smiled, impressed by his son's insight. Where did you hear that? Dr. Morrison, Leo admitted. She says forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or trusting again. It just means letting go of the coal. She's a smart woman, Quentin said. And you're a remarkable young man. As they walked to the car, Leo asked, what about the man Mom was with? Dominic? What happened to him? Quentin tensed slightly. The news of Roland's death had been kept from Leo, and Quentin intended to keep it that way. He's facing consequences for his actions as well. He said, not quite a lie, but far from the whole truth. That evening, Roland arrived at Quentin's home with a thick file. Everything on Harlan Westfield, he explained as Quentin led him to the office. It's worse than we thought. The file revealed a pattern of corruption and criminal connections that extended far beyond the Roland situation. Westfield had been systematically eliminating obstacles to his development projects, sometimes financially, sometimes through intimidation, and in at least 3 cases, including Roland's, through violence. What are you going to do with this? Roland asked after Quentin had reviewed the material. Nothing, Quentin said, closing the file. Roland's got what was coming to him, just not from me. As for Westfield, he shrugged. His business practices don't concern me. Roland looked surprised. Even with what he did to Rollins? Even knowing he'll likely do it again to others. That's a matter for law enforcement, Quentin replied. My focus now is on moving forward, not seeking new targets for retribution. After Roland left, Quentin sat alone in his office, contemplating the file. His initial instinct to destroy Westfield as thoroughly as he had destroyed Vanessa was still there, but diminished. The architect in him recognized it was time for a new design, a new structure built not on the ruins of the past, but on fresh foundations. He placed the Westfield file in his office safe, then retrieved a set of blueprints, his design for a children's hospital that had been on hold during the turmoil of the past year. Tomorrow, he would present them to the board. It was time to create again, not destroy. As he studied the plans, his phone rang. An unknown number. "Holbrook," he answered. "Mr. Holbrook, this is Detective Walsh," came the familiar voice of the officer who had investigated Vanessa and Rollins. "I was hoping we could meet tomorrow to discuss some new developments in an ongoing investigation." "What investigation would that be?" Quentin asked, instantly alert. "The circumstances surrounding Dominic Rollins' death," Walsh replied. "Some interesting information has come to light that I'd like to get your perspective on." "I'm afraid I don't know anything about Rollins' death beyond what I read in the news," Quentin said carefully. "Perhaps not directly," Walsh acknowledged. "But you might have insights that would be valuable, particularly regarding Harlan Westfield and his business practices." Quentin's grip tightened on the phone. "What makes you think I would know anything about Westfield?" "Just a hunch," Walsh said, "based on certain patterns I've observed. You're a man who leaves nothing to chance, Mr. Holbrook. I can't imagine you wouldn't have investigated everyone in Rollins' orbit once you discovered his connection to your wife." "Detective, I've cooperated fully with all legal proceedings related to my ex-wife and her former associate," Quentin stated firmly. "If you have specific questions, I suggest you direct them to my attorney, Tanner Calloway." "I'll do that," Walsh said. "But consider this a courtesy call, Mr. Holbrook. If there's anything you think I should know, anything that might shed light on connections between Rollins, Westfield, and certain financial irregularities, now would be the time to share it." After ending the call, Quentin sat motionless, processing the implications. Walsh was clearly fishing, but the mention of Westfield suggested he was fishing in dangerous waters. He dialed Tanner's number. "We may have a problem," he said when his friend answered. "Detective Walsh is looking into Rollins' death and somehow connecting it to Westfield, and to me." "How solid is the connection?" Tanner asked. "Unknown. But we need to prepare for the possibility that my investigation into Westfield could become problematic if Walsh starts pulling threads." "I'll handle Walsh," Tanner assured him. "But Quinn, this has to be the end. No more investigations, no more vendettas, no more elaborate schemes. Focus on Leo, on your work, on building something positive." "That's the plan," Quentin agreed, looking at the hospital blueprints spread across his desk. "I'm done with destruction." As he hung up, Quentin made a decision. Tomorrow, he would turn the Westfield file over to Walsh anonymously through Tanner. Let the justice system handle Westfield's crimes. His days as judge, jury, and executioner were over. For the first time in more than a year, Quentin Holbrook felt something close to peace. The foundations had been laid. It was time to build something new. Chapter 9. The Final Structure. 1 year later. The grand opening of the Eleanor Sinclair Children's Pavilion at Harborview Medical Center drew Seattle's elite, including Mayor Harrington, who cut the ceremonial ribbon alongside Quentin Holbrook, the building's architect, and Principal Douglas Sinclair, brother of the late pediatrician for whom the pavilion was named. This facility represents the future of pediatric care in the Pacific Northwest, the mayor announced to applause. Its innovative design creates spaces that heal both the body and the spirit. As cameras flashed, Quentin stepped forward to make brief remarks. Architecture at its best doesn't just create spaces, it creates possibilities. This pavilion was designed with one purpose: to give children and families facing medical challenges an environment of hope, comfort, and healing. Every curve, every window, every color was chosen with that mission in mind. In the front row, 14-year-old Leo watched his father with evident pride. Beside him sat Vanessa, looking healthy and composed in a simple but elegant blue dress, a far cry from the designer couture she had once considered essential. After the ceremony, as guests toured the facility, Quentin found himself alone with Vanessa for a moment. "It's beautiful, Quinn," she said sincerely. "One of your best designs." "Thank you," he replied. How are things at the foundation? Following her release, Vanessa had surprised everyone by declining offers to return to the social scene that had once been her entire world. Instead, she had begun working at a foundation supporting families of children with serious illnesses, initially as community service required by her parole, but continuing voluntarily even after those requirements were fulfilled. Challenging but rewarding, she answered. We're launching a new program next month to provide housing for families who travel here for treatment. She hesitated, then added, Actually, I was hoping to discuss that with you. We need architectural consulting for some renovations to our residential facility. Quentin raised an eyebrow. And you're asking me? You're the best, Vanessa said simply. And it would mean a lot to me and to the foundation to have Holbrook Designs associated with the project. 2 years ago, Quentin would have seen this as manipulation. Now, studying her face, he saw only sincere purpose. Send the proposal to Bryant, he said. We'll see what we can do. Thank you. She glanced across the room to where Leo was enthusiastically explaining some aspect of the building's design to his friends from Westlake Academy. He's thriving. Yes, Quentin agreed. The advanced program at Westlake has been good for him, and so have your weekend visits. This was perhaps the most unexpected development of the past year. Vanessa's genuine dedication to rebuilding her relationship with Leo. The supervised visits had quickly progressed to regular weekend stays at her modest apartment, where she had created a space that reflected Leo's interests rather than her own preferences. I have a lot of time to make up for, Vanessa acknowledged. Years when I was physically present but emotionally absent. Before Quentin could respond, Tanner approached them, champagne flute in hand. Congratulations, Quinn. The building is magnificent. Tanner, Vanessa nodded politely. If you'll excuse me, I should check on Leo. As she walked away, Tanner watched her thoughtfully. She's different. Yes, Quentin agreed. I think prison and public humiliation have a way of shifting one's perspective. Speaking of perspective shifts, Tanner said, lowering his voice, Westfield's trial starts next month. Walsh wants to know if you'll testify about the financial connections you uncovered. Quentin shook his head. No, the anonymous file we provided contains everything needed. I don't want Leo or Vanessa drawn into that mess. The investigation into Harlan Westfield had expanded far beyond Rollins' death, revealing a criminal enterprise that included bribery of public officials, money laundering, and connections to organized crime. The developer now faced decades in prison if convicted on all counts. Walsh knows it was you who provided the information, Tanner pointed out. He's grateful, by the way. This case will make his career. As long as my name stays out of it officially, his gratitude is enough, Quentin replied. I've had enough of courtrooms and legal battles. As the event wound down, Quentin found Leo and Vanessa near the pavilion's signature feature, a 3-story atrium with a kinetic light sculpture that responded to movement in the space. Ready to go, Leo? He asked. We have dinner reservations at Canlis to celebrate. Come. Leo asked hopefully. Quentin hesitated only briefly. Of course, if she'd like to. Vanessa looked surprised by the invitation. I wouldn't want to intrude on your celebration. You're not intruding, Quentin said. You're Leo's mother. And this is a night for family. The word hung in the air between them. Not the family they once were, but something new, something reconstructed from the ruins of their past. Later that evening, after dinner and after dropping Vanessa at her apartment, Quentin and Leo sat on their deck overlooking the Seattle skyline. Dad, Leo began tentatively, I know you and Mom will never get back together, but I'm glad we can still do things as a family sometimes. So am I, Quentin said honestly. Your mother has worked hard to change, and I respect that effort. Do you forgive her? Leo asked directly. Quentin considered the question carefully. Forgiveness is complicated, Leo. I've let go of my anger toward your mother. I've stopped seeking vengeance. I can appreciate the person she's becoming now. Is that forgiveness? Maybe a form of it. But you'd never trust her again, Leo concluded perceptively. No, Quentin admitted. Trust, once broken that completely, can't be fully restored. But we can build a new relationship based on where we are now, not where we were then. Leo nodded thoughtfully. Like you always say about architecture, Sometimes you have to demolish the old structure completely before you can build something better in its place. Exactly like that, Quentin agreed, impressed once again by his son's insight. The next morning, Quentin's phone rang as he was driving to the office. Vanessa's name appeared on the display. "Quinn," she began when he answered, "I need to tell you something important." The seriousness in her tone made him pull over. "What is it?" "Westfield's attorney contacted me yesterday. They want me to testify that you manipulated evidence in my case to distract from your own financial improprieties." Quentin's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "And what did you tell them?" "To go to hell," Vanessa replied simply. "I told them I wouldn't perjure myself to help a criminal escape justice, and that while you had been ruthless in our divorce, you had never broken the law." "Thank you," Quentin said, genuinely surprised. "Don't thank me for basic decency," Vanessa said. "I've done enough damage to our family. I won't let Westfield use me to hurt you, or, by extension, Leo." After a moment's silence, she added, "They offered to help overturn my conviction in exchange for testimony against you. A clean slate, they called it. And you turned that down?" Quentin asked, still processing the implications. "Yes," Vanessa confirmed. "My slate isn't clean, Quinn. What happened to me was partially my own doing. I've accepted that. I've built a new life I can be proud of, even with the marks on my record." For the first time since discovering her betrayal, Quentin felt something like respect for his ex-wife. "I appreciate you telling me this. They'll probably try other angles," Vanessa warned. "Westfield is desperate. Walsh told me they've approached several people from our circle with similar offers." "I'll handle it," Quentin assured her. "And Vanessa, thank you." That afternoon, Quentin sat in Tanner's office, outlining what Vanessa had told him about Westfield's desperate tactics. "We need to get ahead of this," Tanner advised. "I'll contact Walsh. Let him know Westfield's attorneys are attempting to suborn perjury." "Will that be enough?" Quentin asked. "Maybe not," Tanner admitted. "Westfield has resources and connections we can't match, and he's fighting for his freedom. People are most dangerous when cornered. What do you suggest?" Tanner leaned forward. "Remember when all this started with Vanessa? You told me you had a choice: simple divorce or complete destruction. You chose destruction, and you were extremely effective at it." "I'm not proud of that choice anymore," Quentin said. "It was excessive." "Perhaps," Tanner acknowledged. "But the skills you demonstrated, your meticulous planning, your understanding of systems and how to use them, those could be valuable now in a defensive capacity. You're suggesting I use the same approach with Westfield?" "Not for vengeance this time," Tanner clarified. "For protection. Westfield is coming after you, Quinn, and by extension, Leo. You need to neutralize the threat." Quentin was silent for a long moment, weighing the options. The architect in him appreciated the elegant symmetry, using the same skills that had once fueled his vengeance now to protect what he had rebuilt. "One condition," he finally said. "Whatever we do, it can't involve Vanessa. She's made her choice to protect our family at cost to herself. I won't repay that by drawing her back into a legal battle." "Agreed," Tanner said. "This stays between us, Roland, and whomever else we absolutely need." Over the next 3 weeks, Quentin meticulously constructed a defensive strategy against Westfield attacks. Unlike his campaign against Vanessa, which had been designed to destroy, this was engineered to neutralize without excessive damage, a shield rather than a sword. With Roland's help, he identified every potential witness Westfield might approach, every vulnerable point in his own past that might be exploited, every connection that could be leveraged. Then, systematically, he secured each vulnerability, not through threats or manipulation, but through transparency and preparation. When Westfield's attorneys approached Bryant with insinuations about financial irregularities at Holbrook Designs, they found he had already been briefed on the situation and remained unshakably loyal. When they attempted to use old military consulting connections to suggest improprieties in Quentin's past government work, they discovered those records had already been voluntarily submitted to Walsh for review and found completely legitimate. Most crucially, when they tried to claim the surveillance system in the Holbrook home had been illegally installed to entrap Vanessa, they ran into an unexpected obstacle. Vanessa herself, who publicly acknowledged that she had been informed about the system when it was installed, contradicting her own previous claims and effectively cutting off that line of attack. 2 days before Westfield's trial was set to begin, the developer's resistance finally collapsed. Facing overwhelming evidence and the failure of his attempts to distract and deflect, he accepted a plea deal that would send him to prison for 15 years. That evening, as Quentin shared the news with Leo over dinner, his son asked a question that caught him off guard. "Dad, are you and Mom friends now?" Quentin considered the question carefully. "I wouldn't say friends exactly, but we found a way to respect each other and work together for your benefit." "Why do you ask?" "Because she defended you against Westfield," Leo said. "She told me about it, said it was the right thing to do, even though it would have been easier to go along with what they wanted." "Your mother has changed a great deal in the past 2 years," Quentin acknowledged. "She's made difficult choices that demonstrate real growth. But you'll never forgive her completely," Leo stated, not asked. "Some betrayals leave permanent marks, Leo," Quentin explained gently. "That doesn't mean we can't build something new and worthwhile from what remains." Leo nodded thoughtfully. "Like the children's pavilion. You built it on the site of that old hospital wing that had to be demolished after the earthquake. Something better from something broken." "Exactly," Quentin smiled. "You're going to make a fine architect someday." "Actually," Leo said hesitantly, "I've been thinking about studying psychology instead. Dr. Morrison says I have good instincts for understanding people." For a moment, Quentin felt a flicker of disappointment. He had always assumed Leo would follow in his footsteps. But looking at his son's apprehensive expression, he realized how important his response was. "I think you'd be excellent at that," he said sincerely. "You have a depth of perception that would serve you well in helping others." The relief on Leo's face was immediate. "Really? You're not disappointed?" "Leo, my only aspiration for you is that you build a life of purpose and meaning," Quentin said. "Whether you design buildings or help design healthier minds doesn't matter. What matters is that you choose your own path." Later that night, unable to sleep, Quentin stood at the window of his bedroom, looking out at the city he had helped shape, building by building. So much had changed in the past 2 years. His marriage destroyed, his faith in others severely damaged, his understanding of his own capacity for ruthlessness expanded. Yet somehow, from those ruins, a new structure had emerged. Not perfect, not without flaws and compromises, but perhaps stronger in some ways than what had been before. His relationship with Leo had deepened through their shared ordeal. His professional work had taken on new meaning with projects like the Children's Pavilion. Even his shattered relationship with Vanessa had evolved into something he never would have anticipated, a respectful co-parenting arrangement based on honesty rather than illusion. The architect in him appreciated the irony. Sometimes the most beautiful and functional structures arose from the most complete demolition.